The Red Rifle has done it, has the Carolina Panthers on the board with a dub yesterday in Las Vegas. Welcome into the show. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. You are the Tolos. Dan B is already Toloed. It's like being in Colombia and go, grr, 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 grr. He's just shouting out already before the show even started.
It's like what?
That he's here.
Pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
Except I like Tolo a little bit better.
You like Tolo?
I like Tolo better.
It's good.
It's not as annoying.
Yeah, Paul Gutierrez, ESPN's Raiders reporter, referred to yesterday's game as a trap game for the Raiders. Well, trap that ass, Paul, because the Carolina Panthers just whooped you in your own brand new snazzy-ass football stadium. Congratulations if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, right? It's the first time in a long time, and I mean a long time, that it's felt good to be a Carolina Panthers fan. Yeah, they won 2 games last year, but neither one of those games felt like a dominant win, right? It didn't feel good to go and get those wins. This one feels good, and it's about damn time. I've only been saying it since week 4 of last year, 6, whatever week that was, when the Panthers were on the road and Andy Dalton got the start and almost won the game for the Carolina Panthers. Sit Bryce Young's ass down and make him learn. And what did he do? The grizzled old veteran just went out there and slung the ball all over the field for 320 and 3 touchdowns. The only quarterback in the NFL this year who's done that. If you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you got to feel good. Can I get an amen?
Did you say only quarterback in the NFL this year that's thrown for over 300 yards? That's right. First of all, congrats to Andy Dalton. But second of all, how are we in a reality world, 2024, where no quarterback's thrown for over 300 yards?
Well, it's still a young season.
Yeah,
right?
but
it's only 2 games.
Passing is down league wide, and I have never. I mean, what is this, 1996 all of a sudden? I mean, we can't throw for over 300 yards. What's happening?
So the Carolina Panthers finally played the kind of football that we all knew that they wanted to play. Dave Canales has spent the entire offseason saying, the kind of football that I want to play. They ran the ball 31 times. They threw the ball 37 times. They kept the Raiders on their toes, and the Raiders sucked against the run, right? They were last place or close to it in the league at stopping the run. They were not good. They were not good. Andy Dalton just went out there and slung the ball all over the field. And Cole, I wonder the question, and we can spend more time talking about this later on in the segment throughout the show. And a lot of people have been asking this question. Is this it for Bryce Young? Right? Is Andy Dalton is a 36-year-old quarterback coming in at 30. Think about that. He's 36, man. He's only 4 years old. He was a freshman in high school when I was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And this dude is out there throwing for 300 in a football game in the NFL.
So to answer your question, I'll get to Andy Dalton because he did play phenomenal yesterday. Like you said, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, a QBR of 86.9. He was fantastic.
Putting him on a dime.
He was. However, the reality of it is no one really cares about Andy Dalton. No one really cares about what is going to happen with the Panthers and Andy Dalton. He's, like you said, he's AARP 36 already. He's getting up there. I mean, for a quarterback, he really is. He is getting up. You're not a quarterback, so you're still off. You're still good for a little while.
Thank you.
Andy Dalton's a quarterback, and you multiply that by 19, so he's pretty up there. I'll say this. Yeah, it's time to look at reality. Like we can dress this thing up and fancy this thing up all we want, Diesel. But the reality of it is, yes, it's one game. Andy Dalton could come out next week and look terrible. We know that. It's the NFL. It's the biggest week-to-week league there is.
Skills diminish and fall off quickly.
They do. However, Bryce Young has not had one of these games in a year and 3 games now. I hate being that guy. I hate being overreaction guy, knee-jerk guy, right? However, yeah, you got to find another route. You got to ship them off. If you're getting any kind of inquiries, from other teams, this is it. Find another way to get rid of this guy. For me, if I'm the Carolina Panthers, I am done with Bryce Young.
Nobody's questioning whether or not Andy Dalton is the quarterback of the future for the Carolina Panthers. He's not, right? I mean, and you said it. He could go out and have a terrible game next week, or he could play 2 or 3 decent games and then his skills could fall off. I don't think that's going to happen. He's been a very consistent quarterback his entire career, but injuries could happen, right? And it becomes harder and harder and harder to recover from those injuries once you're on the back half of 30 years old in the NFL as a quarterback. But, Cole, this quarterback situation the Carolina Panthers have now with Andy Dalton gives them a chance to win. Bryce Young gave the Carolina Panthers every chance to lose football games.
Sure.
Bad decision-making, tons of sacks, throwing the ball over people's heads, getting picked off constantly, can't read a defense. He gives the Carolina Panthers every chance to lose, and that's reflected in every single player on that team. I mean, yesterday the defense played out of their minds. I mean, It wasn't an elite performance from the Carolina Panthers defense, but you could tell there was an obvious spark. I mean, I was listening to the game. I wasn't able to watch it, but I was listening over the air on our sister station, Classic Rock 101.1, and they were talking about after that first touchdown was thrown, the defense was over on the sidelines really hyping each other up. And you could tell that defense prior to this game, so weeks 1 and 2 and into last season, they were like, oh, crap, here we go again.
Yeah.
We're going to get off the field, and then Bryce Young's going to throw a pick, and we're going to be back out there. We're going to be worn down. We're going to get our asses kicked. They're going to throw the ball over our heads. It's like once you have a competent quarterback and they feel at every position, every player feels like you have a chance to go out there and win the football game, everybody actually starts going out there and trying. It didn't feel like they were trying in weeks 1 and 2.
Well, you put in so much work. You put in so much grit and hard work and sweat, and you don't see the results of your labor paying off, right? You're working so hard. You're in training camp, and you're getting out there, Diesel, and you're chopping wood, but guess what? The trees aren't falling. And you keep chopping, nothing's happening, and eventually people start pointing fingers. I mean, I know it. My Cowboys are doing it right now. They're blaming everybody. When you lose, you point fingers. When you get beat up, that's what you do. I do believe that Dan Morgan, Dave Canales, Dave Tepper, maybe not. I believe that everybody in the organization was almost at like the finish line of realization that Bryce Young isn't the guy. And I believe that Andy Dalton and his performance on Sunday pushed Dave, Dan Morgan, and Dave Canales as they were linked arm in arm, right there at the finish line. And Dave was probably spouting off something boneheaded. Andy Dalton pushed him over the finish line. And you know what? I don't know what you can do. I don't know if they still deep down have faith and belief in Bryce Young, but there's not a good situation. You're winning games. You won a game. There's not a good situation.
Let's not put the cart before the horse here. They're not winning games. They won a game.
That's true. One game. I just, if we're going to be that guy, if we're going to overreact and say, okay, Bryce has got to go, what do you do with them? Where do you go from here?
Yeah.
I think Andy Dalton's the answer. To your point, you said it. 2024, let's just all agree that for 2024, if our goal is to win games, Andy Dalton is the answer.
Well, your goal, if you're the Carolina Panthers offensive staff and Madcraft says got to trade Bryce Young for a bag of peanuts and call it a day, your goal is to behind the scenes rehab Bryce Young as much as you possibly can and make somebody believe that he has changed, that he has grown, that he has learned so much from Andy Dalton, right? Like this was the best possible experience for him was to sit and you have some insane practice tape, right? And you can send that out. Like everybody's going to know. Everybody knows how bad Bryce Young was in his 17, 18 starts in the NFL. There's nothing you could do about that. But all you can do is try to put lipstick on that pig and rehab him behind the scenes and hope that you can get some kind of value. Like nobody's going to be excited to go out there and trade for him. Like what are you going to get? What are you going to get for Bryce Young at this point?
On the stream, Stephen Webb, where you can watch Wire to Wire. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Stephen Webb says, Andy is my QB. Madcraft says, it looked like a whole new team. You can go back after looking that much better. Wesley Roberts says, the red rifle is back. No, to your point, Madcraft's right when he says you got to trade him for a bag of peanuts. Maybe somebody somewhere sees value in him.
What are you thinking, like a 5th rounder?
Surely, no.
Fourth rounder. I mean, you're honestly telling me you could get a 3rd round pick. That is a quality depth guy in the NFL. Like, 1st round pick is a starter, quality starter. 2nd round pick is a quality rotation guy. 3rd round pick is a guy that maybe is struggling to make the roster. Like, are you telling me that Bryce Young's worth more than a 3rd round pick?
No. I just thought maybe a 3rd. It was good, though, to your point.
Maybe if there was an NFL team in the state of Alabama, they might say, well, a little nostalgia factor, have Bryce Young come out, wave his little hat in the air, give the people a thrill.
I know.
They don't have that.
I know, you're right. I'm just thinking, what can you get? Do you just call it quits and just you wasted it. You absolutely wasted it.
JB says trade Young to the Browns. They'll take anybody. I mean, you're not entirely far off.
They already have a bad quarterback,
JB.
though.
Yeah. I mean, your only hope maybe is to trade him to a team that runs a similar system to what Bryce Young did well in college. And you need a smarter mind than mine to tell me, is that Cleveland where they've got Deshaun running what they've got? Is that potentially trading him to Baltimore as a backup 3rd string quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens? You can have somebody who has a relatively similar skill set there. I mean, that's what you're looking at. Madcraft says trade him to the Cardinals. Yeah.
Oh God. It's just, I do believe though, best case scenario as a franchise, and I have some Andy Dalton audio from what he said post game. As a franchise, Diesel, you want to look forward. You don't want to look back. Now, is it gut-wrenching that you wasted a 1st round pick on Bryce Young? It absolutely is gut-wrenching. There's no questioning that. However, if you believe what you saw yesterday to be true, there's nothing you can do than say, look, we made a mistake. The past is the past. Let's forget about it. Get rid of them if that's what you think the answer is. But you've got to move forward. You've got to make this – here's the deal. You've got to make this an attractive place now. You've got to make this an attractive landing spot for somebody now, whether that's someone in the draft, whether that's a free agent, whether it's somebody out there who's riding the – whoever it is, you've got to do what you can do right now to win and allow this team to actually look competitive like they did yesterday. And that's how you do it.
Yeah, the fans just needed anything to be excited about, right? Here's my biggest fear, and this was the reason why I said last week, you don't bench Bryce Young, is because you've got Andy, who's an older quarterback. He's in his late 30s. He's not the quarterback of the future for this franchise. I mean, he might be the starter through next year. I don't believe that if Dave Canales and Dave Tepper, especially Dave Tepper, put his money down and was able to go draft a high drafted quarterback in the 1st round next year, that they wouldn't just start that guy, bench Andy and start that guy instead. I feel like that's what they need to do, though. They need to go draft a Quinn Ewers. They need to go draft a Carson Beck, find somebody that fits the body type and the style that Dave Canales wants the most. Now, we know that he's worked with smaller-bodied, elusive quarterbacks in the past. You'd have to ask Dave Canales what his ideal quarterback is, because, I mean, Bryce Young and Andy Dalton couldn't be any different as far as their body type and their abilities. So you got to go find somebody. If you want to build a system, if you want to put a system in place right now that works for Andy Dalton, you got to go find a quarterback that's a younger version of Andy Dalton that can go do exactly what he does, because then he can transition seamlessly into that role. You don't go do what they did last year, which is hire a Frank Reich who's used to having big-bodied quarterbacks, who's a big-bodied quarterback himself, and then you go get him and find a guy that's Hobbit-sized.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No, I'm with you. I have some thoughts on Bryce Young with the relationship there with Dave Canales being brought in and not having the chance yet to go get his guy. But first, here's 22 seconds of what Andy Dalton said post-game.
I mean, it shows what we can do. I think that's for us. It's like, all right, we showed what our standard is now. We know what we can do. And the goal is to be able to prove that each week. And for us, this was a big win, first one of the year. And now it's like, okay, let's go. We know the possibilities out there. We got to go play to that standard.
So, Diesel, I'm with you on what you said just a few minutes ago. However, do you have to, as Dave Canales was brought in last year at the end of the season, whatever it was, in the offseason, Dan Morgan's responsibility and Dave Tepper's responsibility, is it not to now allow Dave Canales to go get the guy he wants? Because Bryce Young wasn't the guy Dave Canales wanted, right? Bryce Young was an idiotic pick by whoever picked him. Dave Tepper, Dan Morgan wasn't there. It's not Dan Morgan's fault. So we have to place blame on Dave Tepper for Bryce Young, right? So I guess my theory is, yeah, you want to win now. And yeah, you have a guy who can do that. But in the same breath, I look at it and say, okay, you've got to go be fair to your head coach. If you're going to bring a head coach here, you can't just expect your head coach to win with the owner's mistakes. You've got to go get a head coach who wants to bring in a guy who he thinks could fit into his offense, because Dave Canales never said Bryce Young would fit into his offense, right? It was a makeshift. So give the guy a chance to go get who he wants.
Yeah. So back to what Madcraft said, ship him off for a bag of peanuts. I don't know. Maybe you can get something like the movie Moneyball, where you trade him to the Cowboys and have Jerry Jones fill the vending machines at Bank of America Stadium for a year. I don't know. I don't know what you go get for Bryce Young, or if you can get anything at all, but it's time to move on. We've seen how this offense can look under a competent quarterback, even if he is 80 years old. We know what this offense can do. And I would be shocked to say that shocked to be told that this is any different from what they planned on the last 2 weeks this season already. They just finally had a quarterback who could go out and do it, right? Who wasn't so completely rattled and broken already. So I think this seals Bryce Young's fate. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form you can bring that guy back in 2025. You got to move on from him. You got to go get another rookie quarterback. Hopefully, again, they bring in a rookie quarterback that is in the style of quarterback Dave Canales wants, and then you sit his ass down for a year and let Andy Dalton go out there and win you 9 games in 2025.
You got to
feel
good
seats, about
man.
yourselves. Fill the seats. I mean, could you imagine what it would be like to put Bryce Young back in at some point this year? I mean, even if this was the magnum opus, right? Even if this was the crazy outlier game for Andy Dalton, and he regresses back down to, I don't know, 175-yard games, which is not awful, but it's not great, right? But he regresses back to the mean.
Well, he's going to regress.
Right. He might. He might. We just don't know at this point.
I don't think he continues at 3.
But if he regresses, is there any way you say, all right, we're going to sit Andy and say, Bryce, you've had 5-6 weeks to sit back and learn. We're going to put you back in the game. I mean, just think about the black cloud that would hang over this locker room.
Yeah.
This offense clearly affects the defense as well, the fan base. If Dave Tepper tried to pull the "I'm so smart, I'm right here" situation, that card, the Boo Birds would be out so strong in Charlotte, it'd be unreal.
From the 274 on the text line, this is Mark L. Mark L says, Diesel, Bryce looked like he was pouting on the bench, not learning. Texter from the 321 says, Will Levis to the Panthers and Bryce to the Titans. Let them see if they can rehab each other's mistakes. I don't know if they would accept that trade if you're the Titans. However, I mean, Will Levis over Bryce Young, yeah, can't be any worse. Texter says, let's see, this is from the 809. Texter says, if the Panthers want Quinn Ewers, they need to start Bryce Young. See the problem? Andy Dalton might win just enough to miss those quarterbacks in the draft. Well, Texter, if you're still listening from the 809, that is exactly what I said last week. If Andy Dalton starts and goes and wins a handful of games, yeah, you've got a problem. Well, you've got to find somebody through free agency.
The only problem that you have there, I mean, and we know this team is bereft of talent everywhere, right? They need elite edge rushers. They need elite wide receivers. They need an elite running back. They need a quarterback. They need a lot of different things, right? And I don't think anyone believes that Andy Dalton's going to put this team in playoff contention, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's not still drafting inside the top 10, top 8. And if you're there, you know, you gotta take what you can get at that place. I mean, quarterback is always in a high demand, and maybe it's not Quinn Ewers. Maybe it's not a quarterback out of Georgia. maybe it's an elite edge rusher, in which case you still need that, right? So
Still need it.
you may keep Bryce Young on the roster for another year if nobody's willing to take him, and go get you a great defensive end.
Ugh, that sounds depressing. 907 says, I missed the opening of the show, but looks like I'm eating crow about the Panthers not beating the Raiders. LOL, good call. Yeah, I guess you are eating crow if you picked the Panthers to lose. However, Texter, you didn't put your name, so we don't know who you are.
To Mark L.O. Ducks, who texted in and said it looked like Bryce was pouting on the bench, not learning. I remember listening to the game yesterday, and they said that, hey, Andy went straight down to the end of the bench, talked to Bryce, and said, what did you see? Which is the exact same thing Bryce would do when he was playing. Whenever something would go right or go wrong, Bryce would go straight to Andy on the bench and say, what did you see? So I think there's probably more of a collaborative effort here than a lot of us are giving them
And,
credit for.
you know, the reason Andy Dalton did that, the reason he went down to the bench to ask Bryce Young what he saw, he did that for a specific reason, so that he knows what not to do. That's what he did that for. He knows what not to do. He's not stupid. He's not going to listen to Bryce
Do you
Young.
think he went down and said, hey, what did you see? What did you see on that 31-yard pass on a dime that I threw to Adam Thielen for a touchdown in the end zone? What
Bryce,
did you see on that? You saw a competent quarterback.
Bryce, do you know the difference between a dime and a duck? Do you know the difference? Because there's a difference. I threw dimes, you threw ducks. Speaking of dimes, Robbie Ashford. He was good. We'll get to that a little bit later in the program. Cade Klubnik was also really good. Clemson, NC State, what we thought, what we saw. Next. You know, it's one of those days, it's one of those Mondays where people are a little bit more excited. There's no trash talk between the two fan bases. Well, there's not as much. Let me put it that way. There's not as much trash talk between the two fan bases. South Carolina wins, Clemson wins. Everybody's happy. There's no, fighting at the neighbor's mailbox, Diesel. It's a happy day as of now. We'll take it. Clemson 59-35 over NC State on Saturday. I did expect Clemson to win big. However, fourth quarter came around and NC State decided, hey, let's score 21 points. I don't know if Clemson's defense just went into the locker room or what happened, but 59-35, you'll take it if you're a Clemson Tiger all day long. I want to hear from you, Clemson fans. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. A little, what do we call? Like a paw up, paw down for you Tiger Paul fans. What did you like that you saw? What did you not like? What are your concerns? Paul up and Paul down, not P-A-U-L. Paul Feinbaum.
Paul,
P-A-W.
Paul.
I'm so redneck and Southern, I can't say Paul and Paul different. Say Paul, P-A-U-L.
Paul.
Now say P-A-W.
Paul.
So, okay, Paul.
I
struggle. They sound the same when they come out of my mouth. Paul Feinbaum.
Yeah, but
Clemson.
You also can't pronounce the difference between hell and hail.
Hell. Oh, God, you're right. You're right. You're
That's
exactly
when you know
right.
somebody's really from the South.
You are exactly right.
When they flip-flop them.
And I didn't know that until just now.
Yeah.
So
like you say so-and-so's going to hail, or there's a hailstorm coming this way. You flip-flop the way you say it.
I like it. So Paul, P-A-W, that was better that time. It really was better, Paul. So Paul up, Paul down, Clemson fans. What did you like that you saw? What did you not like? Was it the defense allowing 35 points, 21 points in the fourth quarter of play? Maybe that didn't sit well with you. But overall, Diesel, a good day. Cade Klubnik, 16-24, 209 yards and 3 touchdowns, 99.9 QBR. Phil Maffa, 107 yards. He did get injured, but a good day for the Tigers. They did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Well, we were asking the question last week, on Friday. We were asking the question, did what South Alabama did to App State devalue what Clemson did to App State? And the answer to that question is not at all, because Clemson has found something. They are clicking on offense. They are running a really smooth offense right now, and they're putting up a ton of points. Now, I'd have to go look and see where NC State ranks defensively in FBS this year. I know they haven't looked particularly great at all this season, but they haven't given up major offensive outbursts like that, right, against who they've played so far.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, they hadn't. They hadn't yet.
They hadn't yet. And they may continue. I don't know. That's a good question. Is NC State's defense that bad? Or again, for the second week in a row, second game in a row, you're right. Clemson's offense was absolutely electric. The Oculus on the YouTube stream, he comments on the game. He says, I expected a closer game, especially after App State lost so bad to South Alabama. Glad to see them come out hot. Not worried about the fourth quarter. That was really, all caps, really deep depth playing on defense, says the Oculus on the YouTube stream. What do you say, Tiger fans? 71307. Paul up and Paul down. What'd you like that you saw? Also, what concerns you a little bit? You can also call. Phone lines are open. 1-844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE.
Yeah, NC State is not currently – I'm on NCAA.com, their stats page. NC State not even listed as a top 50 defense. Now, what happened on Saturday certainly affects this, and very well probably pushed them out of the top 50 as a defense in college football. Clemson just they had their way with them. They ran all over the field. They threw the ball all over the field. And obviously, when you're NC State, when you're giving up 2 turnovers on fumbles in one game, that really puts you so far deep in a hole that it's hard to dig out of when you're running back a freshman quarterback when the guy that you expected to be in this game was not there. And Clemson knew early this week that Grayson McCall was not going to be in this game, so they knew they could pin their ears back and go after the quarterback.
Texter says, y'all are funny. Cole, you got to act like you gon' say Paula with Paul, but that little bit of the L in there at the end. Huh? What do you mean, Texter? Paula? Paul? I can't say Paul, Paul and Paw any different. I just can't. As much as I can try, I can't do it. Texter says Clemson played their walk-ons until after halftime. That's why they scored 21 in the fourth. Walk-ons. They have 11 walk-ons. They put all 11 walk-ons on the field at one time.
I'm a little surprised only because Dabo Swinney needs to rehab Clemson's image this year as much as he possibly can. And the AP voters, while they'll look at that and say, that's great, you put up 66 last week or 2 weeks ago, you put up 59 this week, you still put up 3 against Georgia, and you still gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points against Georgia. I mean, I'm shocked that Dabo did not leave the starters out there deeper into the game to keep that score as low as possible on defense so that they could start building a resume for this defense.
Madcraft on the stream says, Cade has garnered my respect now. JB says, that's what a good Clemson is supposed to do to a down NC State squad.
This was not a down NC State squad. They were a preseason top 25 team. A lot of people expected NC State to push for the ACC championship game.
Let's see. Texter says NC State isn't the best team, but Clemson had trouble putting up points against awful teams last season. That there's a huge improvement on offense. Paul up from Boston Scott. Well, we've created a game all of a sudden. Paul up and Paul down. What do you like? What did you not like?
What did Paul ever do to you?
Paul. Let's see. Any more texts that I missed? Panthers are now 2025 Super Bowl favorites. The Red Riot. Okay. Okay. All right.
Do you realize that Duke is the only FBS team in the state of North Carolina to win last weekend?
That's not good.
The only one.
What about
the only one?
Oh, God, nobody.
Wake didn't play. NC State got blasted.
Yeah, they did.
App State got blasted. North Carolina got blasted. Charlotte got blasted.
East
Carolina, I think they were I think they lost by 14 or so to
Liberty.
Liberty.
They were up 17-0.
Yeah.
I was feeling myself.
I didn't even go look at the ECU message boards to see where those fans are. But that's 2 weeks in a row that they had 16 and 17 point leads early, respectively, and gave it up both weeks.
You know, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine on the phone today, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Diesel, regarding Clemson and NC State, as well as the thoughts of our Tolos. And if he's listening, you know who you are. I won't use your name on air, but I was talking to a friend of mine, and he called me and said, "Hey, how about Clemson? How about?" And by the way, this is a South Carolina Gamecock fan. He said, "How about Clemson? Torturing NC State, and NC State, had their guy from the portal and Grayson McCall, and he goes down, and all of a sudden they don't have developed quarterbacks, and Dabo over here, who everybody's bashed.
Oh, the I told you so.
It's the I told you so.
Yeah.
I got one, but it was a Gamecock fan, so I think he was kind of saying it tongue in cheek, kind of like in a funny manner, but." It was a good conversation.
We did get a few of those last week.
And I'll say this to the I told you so fans, Diesel, who say, look, NC State had a transfer quarterback. He went down. Dabo, he's doing it Dabo's way, and he won 59-35. I said to you a few weeks ago on these very airwaves that this would happen. You play in the ACC. Does Dabo have a good team? Yes, he does. Is he respected? Yes, he should be respected, right? He's still a respected coach. However, I said this was going to happen. They're going to get into ACC play and against App State and put up a lot of points, look really good, and all of a sudden, people are going to be right back on the train, and that's where we are.
Well, people were on that train after Florida State lost 3 in a row to start the season because they know that roster is predominantly transfer guys, right? I couldn't tell you the percentage of guys who were on Florida State's team that were recruited out of high school. So people love to look at that example and say, look, Florida State is so heavily transfer portal, it clearly doesn't work, right? When you go all portal. None of us ever said we wanted Dabo Swinney to go all portal. We wanted him to use it wisely. And you look around, Cole, and look who's sitting in the top 10. And then you go the AP polls. And then you compare that to who is in the top 10 in the transfer portal this year. All those teams who were sitting in the AP top 10 were elite in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Ole Miss, talking about Tennessee, talking about Georgia, Alabama, All those teams, Miami, all of them had elite transfer classes.
I did.
And they are elite football teams this year. So you can't just look at one example. One player goes down who was a transfer quarterback. See, portal doesn't work. No, that means that individual player went down, and Dave Dorn was stupid and didn't have a developed quarterback behind him ready to go if his transfer quarterback goes down. You can use the portal wisely. You cannot depend on it solely, exclusively.
And I agree with that. I think it has, I think with anything, it has its advantages, it has its disadvantages. But let's remember, let's back up and let's pause. And I can't remember what guest it was. It might have been Smitty a few weeks ago, Diesel, when we were talking about Clemson, the ACC. We have to remember that these I told you so conversations, these portal conversations with Clemson and Dabo, all of these conversations change based on the circumstance, right? If Clemson were doing the same thing in the SEC, or better yet, let's say an SEC team had the same philosophies that Dabo had, right? Let's say a Georgia or somebody who was used to being at the top of the pack for a very long time, had the same philosophies that Dabo had and decided, hey, I'm not going to use the portal. Do you think they would be kicking teams, 59-35 and then App State? No, but it's like I told my buddy today on the phone. Yes, two things can be true. Dave Doran didn't have a quarterback to replace Grayson McCall. But in the same token, in the same breath, guess what? If Dabo Swinney were playing in the SEC, the deficiencies would be a lot more glaring than they are in the ACC. If that upsets you, if that offends you, I'm sorry. It's just a reality. However, you're not in the SEC, right? You're in the ACC. So you tell me, well, Cole, we're not in the SEC. Why does that even matter? Well, I'll tell you why it matters. At the end of the year, when you get done with the Cupcake Conference and you beat Miami or lose to Miami and have to go on to play the playoff teams, these playoff teams ain't coming from the ACC. They're going to be good teams. Yeah. So are you going to be able to compete with the good teams?
Well, these people, these I told you so's, they're going to be around for a while, Cole. Clemson hosts Stanford. So you got another weak opponent at home next week, who, by the way, went on the road and beat Syracuse, by the way. So maybe I shouldn't talk so much trash about Stanford. I looked at them in my upset pick, and I was so mad. I was like, watch. I looked at them. I didn't take them. They're going to win, and my pick's not going to hit. Well, it did, and I got more points than I would have.
You did good
for Stanford, Syracuse. But then you're going on the road and playing a Florida State team that is so down bad and dejected. It's like playing an FCS team. Same with Wake Forest, an awful Virginia coming into Death Valley. And then you got to go all the way to November 2nd before you got a team with a pulse on your schedule. And that's a team with a pulse right now. Louisville is number 15 right now. They may still be there. They may go up. They may go down. We don't know. So Clemson fans, those of you who are just drop the portal conversation for a little while. Stop with the I told you so. Feel good and say, hey, we're back. We're doing well. We're doing what we've always done, even before the portal, and beating up on a weak ACC schedule.
Now, I will say this before we run. I have no issue eating crow. So if you go into the playoffs and you do these on the playoffs, then I'll eat crow, right? I'll admit, yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, Dabo can still win the way he wants to win. If he goes and plays for national championship, I'll be the first one to say I'm wrong. I have no problem doing that. But beating NC State and beating App State, scoring 100 points, that's not playoffs. That's not playoff wins. That's not where you have to be in order to win a national championship. That's all I'm saying.
No, you got a very strong point there. When we come back, Cole, reports were that Mack Brown threatened to quit right after the James Madison loss. What happened there? We're going to break it down. Do we really think Mack Brown's going to walk away early in the season? All that's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Reports of Mack Brown's demise were apparently greatly exaggerated after Saturday's emotional 70-50 loss to James Madison. 70 to if I told you North Carolina played James Madison 70-50, you would assume that was a basketball score and North Carolina won, not a football score and North Carolina lost.
That would actually make sense. Yeah. 70-50. Yeah. I believe it.
So this is a report I saw over the weekend. Quote, an emotional coach, Mack Brown, told the North Carolina football team that he was walking away from the job after the Tar Heels' embarrassing 70-50 loss to James Madison. Hours later, another source emphasized that the 73-year-old Hall of Famer isn't resigning or quitting his coaching position. So apparently, in the locker room after the game, Mack Brown came in and said something to the effect of, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm gone. And then didn't actually mean it that way, right? Like it was
what do you mean not mean it?
maybe it was a tactic to get them to be like, no, coach, you're our guy. We love you, coach. I mean, like all the reports are the players at North Carolina love Mack Brown. And he's a beloved guy there, right? So I think it was kind of when you're emotional, you say things you don't really mean, but
you don't say I quit, do you? I mean,
it depends on the exact words that he said to the players, right? It's not like he walked into the locker room and said, y'all are a bunch of bums. You're going to give me a heart attack. I quit. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. That's not what happened, right?
We don't think.
Yeah, we don't think. And again, I think maybe it was all just an emotional response or a technique to get the team to like galvanize and rally around. Kind of like when a basketball coach intentionally gets a tech or intentionally gets thrown out of the game to rally the team. Because I mean that's just a down bad locker room right now.
It is.
You score 50 points, you're going to win almost every game in college football, right? But when you score 50 and you give up 70 at home and your crowd deserts you, they all leave. The stands are empty by the fourth quarter. I mean, I understand why Mack was really emotional. I understand why a lot of the players were really emotional after that. I mean, I heard that their star wide receiver was tweeting after. By the way, they didn't make any of the players available to the media immediately after the game. They didn't want them talking to the media
about the coach quitting.
Yeah, well, potential. I don't know when, the order of operations of this information. Mack did come out and do a post-game press conference.
Did he?
Yeah.
I was in Columbia Saturday, and when this happened, like, you know how word spreads. Spread quickly. Mack Brown's out. He quit. And everybody was thinking, wait, he pull a Spurrier? Just, I'm out, right in the middle of the season?
He's 73. How much more of this does he want to go through?
You know what? Like, I don't know, but we all can agree this is it, right? This is it for Mack Brown. There's no way he comes back next. So North Carolina is going to be looking for a coach. Let's just call it like
he'll be 74 next year. I don't know when when coaching success tends to fall off.
He probably, like, I don't want to use judgment here, but he's probably getting to the age where in order to do this job well, you've got to be all there. You've got to be able to, move fast and think fast. And, that's tough.
So North Carolina has found themselves in this situation before where they have a god-awful defense. They have a good offense, and they're still getting beat by G5 teams. 2022, North Carolina App State 63-61, final score in Boone. You score 61 points, you ought to blow anyone out, right? You ought to be wiping the floor with somebody when you're scoring 50 or when you're scoring 61. And to have the just total crap of a defense that North Carolina almost always has. I mean, how has Mack Brown not completely fired his defensive staff today? How have they not gotten to that point? They gave up 70 points in a home loss.
Yeah.
They gained 616 yards of offense. They're second most in school history in Kenan Stadium.
Not good.
Combined 120 points. You were losing by 32 at halftime to a G5 school.
Not good
Not
at all.
good.
All right, in the very next segment, I have a question for you, Tolos, Diesel as well. We're going to do a little evaluating. Everybody loves to evaluate, except for Mack Brown, right? He's too old for that. How does the first 4 weeks of college football, Diesel, impact who we think will be in, who we think will be out? Locks, unlocks. Who's locked in? Who's kind of iffy as of right now, 4 weeks into the season? Your thoughts as well. 71307 is the text line. Start your text with the word fan. You know, Diesel, we all love polls. We all love polls, especially Rick and Greer. But the AP poll came out.
It's Rick's son. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Very much.
It's Rick's son. I apologize. Sorry for getting it wrong.
If you forgot, Rick called in one day and said that he bought an old ice cream shop that he has now got back up and running, and that his son teaches pole dancing classes in the back of the ice cream shop.
That's right. So
that's where that came from.
That's where that came from. And the poll that I'm talking about is the AP poll that came out yesterday, September 22nd. And that's what we're looking at because, you know, the official college football playoff Final Four, now Final 12, whatever it is, not even final. It'll be the college football playoff top 12, I guess. Maybe they do 15. I don't know how many they do whenever they decide to release it. However, we do have the AP poll. We have the coaches poll until then, Diesel. And I want to look at, and I want to hear from you, Tolos, as well. I want to look at the sample size that we have of the first 4 weeks of college football. The teams that we predicted, you and I predicted to be in the college football playoff, and the teams that we predicted to be on the outside looking in. Are they still there? What changes do we have now? What's happened thus far that changes our mind about who's going to be in, who's going to be out, what questions you have? Text line 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Who do you think right now is a lock? Who do you think right now is an absolute dead giveaway that finds themselves in the college football playoff? We'll go through them one by one.
Yeah, there's still a lot of question marks for a lot of these teams because most have not played a single conference game yet. Some of them have maybe played one. I know we're getting a lot more of that mixed in first couple of weeks of the season, but, you know, for example, Ohio State has played the Sisters of the Poor so far. They've given up exactly 20 points this season against Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. Akron has Akron's been blasted by every FBS team they've played. They played Ohio State, they played Rutgers, they played South Carolina. They gave up close to 50 points in all three of those football games. Western Michigan, not good. Marshall, not good. So the jury's still out. We don't know much about Ohio State as far as what happens once they start playing FBS power schedule teams. They got a road game against Michigan State this week. They get into conference play in earnest starting this week. Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, the next 4 weeks of the season. I think it's safe to say, considering how they've looked so far, they've done exactly what we thought they were going to do.
Yep.
And they've done exactly what they should do against the schedule that they have. So I'm putting Ohio State in as a lock. And there's no reason why I went with them first. I'm not saying that they're my number one pick by any means. I'm not saying they're my number one seed. Mm-hmm. I just decided to start with them because we don't have a power resume on Ohio State yet.
Let's do this to make it a little more controversial, right? We all like controversy. We all like a little argument, a little good debate. I'll go through the AP poll, Diesel, and just simply yes or no whether you think they're a lock to make it. Tolos, you can play along as well. Where we go wrong, let us know. Madcraft on the YouTube stream says number 7's looking like a squad. Without looking at the AP poll, let me guess. Miami is number 7, right? No way Miami's anything but 7, having played nobody. Scott on Facebook says, only locks I have are Ohio State, Texas, and Georgia as of right now. Most other teams like LSU and Alabama have been winning, but not as impressive as expected, where I can consider them a lock. And, of course, it comes down to Clemson or Miami, says Scott. I think there's a lot of interesting conversation when it comes to those that he talked about, like LSU. So I agree with you on Ohio State. I think Ohio State's definitely going to be right there, if not number 1 in the country, right? If they can go along and do what they're supposed to do, they have a very good chance to do so. They have, Diesel, in my opinion, less opportunities to trip up compared to a team like Georgia, right, who has to play Alabama and Texas. Yeah. Yep, a little bit different of a schedule. However, let's start. Do you want to start, Diesel, at the top or the bottom, say 1 or 15?
Well, let's start at 15 and work our way down.
Okay, that's a great place to start, by the way, because sitting at number 15 in the AP poll is 3-0, who moved up 4 spots. 3-0 Louisville Cardinals sitting in the AP poll top 15, exactly number 15 in the country. And this one is a very interesting conversation, but I'll let you have the floor here first. Do you think Louisville is a lock in, or am I wrong there?
I think as of right now, Louisville is on the outside looking in.
Okay.
Because they host number 7 Miami on October 19th. They go on the road to number 17 Clemson on November 2nd.
Most likely a loss, right?
Could be, yeah. I mean, I would pencil, as of right now, I would pencil both of those games in as losses. I mean, because again, who has Louisville played? Austin Peay, Jacksonville State, Georgia Tech. They handled Georgia Tech easily. I'm not saying that Miami is going to blow them out. I'm not saying that Clemson is going to blow Louisville out, but I would expect Louisville to drop both of those football games. And now if you're sitting there with 2 ACC losses, I think you're on the outside looking in.
100%. I like that as well, because you're right. Those 2 games, you're not winning both of them unless Louisville is just Lamar Jackson Louisville and we don't know about it, right? We know they're a good team. We don't expect them to win both of those. That's still tough competition having to play Clemson and Miami both on the schedule. So I'm with you. I do think Louisville's on the outside looking in. That takes us, by the way, this conversation really becomes more and more difficult as we drop down a spot. A team, Diesel, that moved up 2 spots from last week, number 14, currently in the AP poll. LSU 3-1. Their only loss is to Southern Cal. They squeaked by South Carolina. They have South Alabama this weekend. We all expect that to be a win. This one really is tough for me. And Scott mentioned this one on the stream. Where do you have LSU when the season comes to an end?
I have LSU sitting on the outside. I think LSU is, just by virtue of the schedule that they play, LSU is probably not going to finish the season inside the top 15.
Ooh.
Because they play Ole Miss at home, Texas A&M on the road, Alabama at home, Oklahoma at home. So they get a lot of their toughest games. They get most of their toughest games at home. I just don't know that LSU and what we've seen from them, which has been shaky thus far. You know, they played a lot of mistakes on the road at South Carolina.
I'll tell you this, man. I'm looking at their schedule as you are. I think they find themselves in the playoff. I think they find themselves in the college football playoff. I really do. So you look at the rest of their schedule. They just beat UCLA, which UCLA is not anywhere what they used to be, right? South Alabama's not good. We expect them to drop a game.
South Alabama's really good. World beaters. World beaters.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah. You're right about that. Ole Miss, Alabama are the 2 where I could find, okay, they've already lost 1. If they're a 3-loss SEC team, if LSU finishes the season with 3 losses. Now, let's just be very clear. If they finish with 4 or more, yes, you're right. They're 100% on the outside looking in. But if they finish with 2 to 3, if they finish with 2 SEC losses, I think they're in. 3 is where it becomes very, very tricky. I don't know that a 3-loss LSU team is a lock to get in. However, it would not surprise me when I look at their schedule to see them beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, right? Drop a game to Ole Miss and finish. I'll tell you what hurt them more than anything. What hurt this team, Diesel, was the very first game of the season losing to Southern Cal by 7 points in the game they had won. Now, all of a sudden, think about it. LSU, Diesel, could be 4-0 right now with a chance to get into the playoff. Okay, let's say Alabama and Ole Miss you chalk up as losses. Well, guess what? If you're a 2-loss LSU team, you're still getting in most likely with 2 losses. That Southern Cal game, if LSU misses the college football playoff, it'll be because of the very first game of the season against Southern Cal. So I'll say I think they make it, but that's not a confident pick by any means. Number 13, Southern Cal, the team we just talked about. They dropped 2 spots, Diesel. They have Wisconsin this Saturday. Big Ten is a very interesting conversation with Southern Cal and Michigan, then Penn State and Oregon. Southern Cal right now, 13. Do you like them on the outside or the inside?
I like Southern Cal as an at-large team. I'm not going to put them in as a lock, but I'm not going to put them outside because they went toe-to-toe with and beat a good LSU team. Not elite, but good.
Yeah.
They went toe-to-toe with and lost late against a really good Michigan team. Great defense in Michigan. They just gave up, 27 points.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Southern Cal is good enough to be an at-large team this year. I mean, looking down the schedule, they host Penn State. Then you got to go all the way to November 30th, where they host Notre Dame. Those are the only two ranked opponents left on this schedule. So it's Minnesota, at Maryland, Rutgers, a down Washington. We don't know what they are in Nebraska, a down UCLA, and then it's Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has shown that they will give up games that they shouldn't.
I'm with you on that. I like what you said. Texter from the 618 says, Cole's on crack. LSU won't get in. I might not be on crack, but I might be crazy. I think they might sneak in.
Another texter says, hey, Louisville, birds don't have teeth. It's true.
Birds don't have teeth.
You know what he's talking about?
No, I don't.
The Louisville Cardinal logo, the bird has teeth.
No.
Yeah. It has teeth.
But real Cardinals don't have teeth.
No, they have beaks. They don't have teeth.
Wow.
But these idiots up in Louisville.
Why have I never known that?
It was like 20 years. It was like 15 years ago. Louisville was just some dinky commuter school.
Yeah, still is. I can say that. One of my best friends went there. I can say that. All right.
Louisville. They don't even know how to say the name of their own school.
They can't say it.
Louisville.
Diesel, I'm with you on USC. Their schedule sets up well. Maybe I'm wrong on LSU. Maybe they get out. Maybe they're on the outside looking in. Michigan 3-1 in the Big Ten. They move up 6 spots, so they're already 12. They play Minnesota this week.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at what you were just talking about a minute ago, the trip-up games. That's what I'm looking at for Michigan. Do you see trip-up games in the future for them?
I do. I mean, I could see this Indiana game being a trip-up game. Kurt Cignetti's doing big things there. They're 3-0, but they're not ranked. They go on the road at number 19, Illinois. How is Illinois number 19? What a quiet team getting up into the top 20. Oregon, at Ohio State, at Indiana. I see a couple of trap games on this schedule for Michigan. A really good defense, a mediocre offense, especially when they're playing. I mean, they threw 3 picks against Arkansas State, right? The offense is a little suspect. So I could see Michigan getting down a game or two and not having the horses to claw their way back in and win.
See, I say they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I think they're out of the playoff.
I think so too.
But they're not going to be like so far out of the hunt that they're not under some form of consideration.
It'll be a conversation. They're 1 loss right now. That USC win will go a long way. However, I don't see them beating Oregon, Diesel, and I don't see them beating Ohio State. I really don't. I don't think they beat either one of them. So I think they finished with 3 losses at a minimum, which I don't think gets them in, man. I think they're on the outside. That 1 loss already. Again, these early losses, people say, oh, the playoffs expanded. They don't mean as much, but still, it's a loss. So Michigan, I say outside looking in. Diesel agrees there. A few more before we run to a break and talk to David Hood of TigerNet.com. Diesel, Missouri is 4-0. However,
they're looking shaky. They're looking real shaky.
They dropped 4 spots.
Yeah,
Diesel, and
they
now
don't have a
find themselves
D.
Right out of the top 10. What do you think?
They needed overtime? They needed overtime to beat Vanderbilt. Which shout out to Vanderbilt. Really good start for them so far. I mean, how is it? Yeah, how is it that Vanderbilt's not ranked at this point? Could you imagine a world where Vanderbilt's ranked this early in the season?
Am I right on that? Are they 4-0?
I believe
Missouri. By the way, they're 4-0 as well. No. Vandy lost 3-1. That's right, because they played. Missouri and Vandy played each other. Missouri, like you said, won that game in double overtime. They didn't look really good against Boston College. Diesel, we said it before the season started. Missouri's schedule sets up very nicely, but you're right, they haven't looked great. However, what games do you see that – I mean, I don't know. I think that Missouri has a good chance And by the way, Vandy's lost too. They lost to Georgia State as well. I apologize on that. You look at Missouri's schedule. They have A&M, UMass, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
Yeah, that back half is
The back
really
half's
tough.
Mm-hmm.
That back half is really tough. I mean, I could see them, staying where they are in that 8 to 12 range. They're sitting at 11 right now. But then towards the end of the season, things start to get tough, and you fall outside of the top 20.
And
then anything inside the top 20 really is in contention. Honestly, you got to say inside the top 16 is contention because you're at least taking away one spot for a G5 champion.
Yeah. This one's tough. I think
I'm
this
saying
is
they're
the
on
toughest,
the way out. I think they're out.
outside looking in.
Yeah.
I think this is the toughest one by far that we've done yet. And then, look, when you get into the top 10, we're not going to go through the top 10 because we know the top 10 most likely – they all have a very good chance of getting in, right? If you're top 10 right now.
Do you see any in the top 10 that you don't believe in?
The only ones that I see in the top 10 that I could see on the outside looking in would be Penn State. Penn State, maybe Utah, but the rest of them through.
But Utah, somebody's got to win the Big 12, right?
Somebody has
and
to.
Utah is currently the highest ranked Big 12 team. You got to go down to number 18 to find Iowa State, number 20 to find Oklahoma State. Iowa State's 3-0, Oklahoma State's 3-1. BYU sitting there at 4-0. They don't really, the pollsters don't believe in BYU yet to this point.
Does Missouri, let me ask you this real quick on Missouri. I haven't given you an answer. I think they are right there in contention like Michigan. They're right there in contention when the season comes to an end, when it comes to the college football playoff. But the October 26th game in Tuscaloosa is going to be huge, right? They've got to escape this schedule, in my opinion, with only one loss. If they can get through with one loss,
and that's going to be tough.
It is with Oklahoma and South Carolina. They have to go on the road to the South Carolina game that's in Columbia. Well, all of them.
I mean, if you told me that Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State were your three reps from the Big Ten, I'd say, yeah, that tracks. I really don't see anybody who really makes a valid push to come in and be a fourth Big Ten team to make it. USC, maybe, just by virtue of not playing a really tough schedule. But then you're looking at a team that's not making the Big Ten championship game and has to rely on their resume against a relatively weak schedule to get in.
JT and Greer says Cole may be right on LSU if they have the refs from South Carolina game all season. Texter says Missouri is crap with a crap schedule. Texter, right now they are. They're not looking great. However, can they turn things around? The good thing is they haven't looked good, but they're still undefeated.
When we come back, we go deep into this Clemson blowout over NC State with David Hood at mdavidhood on Twitter. He's from TigerNet.com. That's coming up next. Clemson coming off back-to-back blowout wins at home at Death Valley. They took it to App State, and they showed us that it was no fluke against NC State, also out of the ACC. We go now to David Hood of TigerNet.com to talk about it. David, first of all, welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking the time with us, but it feels like this is kind of like a all's right with the world for Clemson fans, right? Beating up on weaker teams. Given the way the defense is playing right now, which is pretty good, do you believe that game goes markedly different if Grayson McCall is in?
No, not really. I think CJ Bailey I think he was fantastic. I do, considering the rush that he was under and the way that he performed. Grayson McCall was not good in his, time in a Wolfpack uniform, and I'm sure he's still going to play. But, you really, if you're a Wolfpack fan, you had to love what you saw from CJ Bailey. He ran hard. He threw the ball well at times. And, in fact, I'm sitting there in the press box trying to wonder what's going on with their offensive coordinator when at one point he is having absolutely no success running the football, but they have run it into the middle of Clemson's defensive line more than they're letting Bailey throw it. And I thought the kid did really well.
David Hood, TigerNet.com. David, a couple of weeks ago after the Georgia loss, I said on the air that what I predicted to happen was, the heat that was currently on Dabo from the national perspective as well as local perspective about not using the portal. I predicted, App State, NC State, these few games coming up, Clemson would go out, trot out, and put up 1,000,000 points, look really well. And I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I believe Clemson fans, not all of them, but some of them are guilty of falling into the cycle that I predicted of allowing yourself to be, trapped by the ideology of what's going on right now. You're kind of a victim of the circumstance that's happening right now. And Clemson fans, some of them, in my opinion, they get really high after these wins, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that you should apologize for a win. However, do you think that these are substance games, or this Clemson team really is getting better?
No, this Clemson team really is getting better. It doesn't matter who you're playing. That kind of goes back to the nameless, faceless opponent. You still have to execute, and so you go out there and you go, okay, so NC State, not very good, but do you play down to that opponent, or do you play up to your level? And if you're playing up to your level, that's what you have to take away from it. And this Clemson offense is lethal. I think actually the offense is playing better than the defense, and the defense has some issues that need to get fixed and need to get fixed right away before, they play better competition. Stanford's coming in this week. Stanford went on the road and beat Syracuse. They're going to be really confident. And you got to go on the road for a primetime game at Florida State, at Wake. Come back for Virginia, and then you have that 5-game schedule in November that, will really tell the tale for this Clemson team. So you just go out and you get better every week, and you look at how you play, not who you play, how you play. And I think that's the most important thing. And remember, we talked about after that Georgia game, don't get too low. Still got, 11 regular season games to go. Don't get too high. You just kind of take it week by week.
David Hood of TigerNet joining us here on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg. Speaking of that defense, Sammy Brown led the team in tackles and tackles for loss on Saturday. Obviously didn't play against Georgia, but he's really emerged in the last 2 games against App State and NC State. Freshman TJ Moore had a massive reception for 40 yards. Tough game for Bryant Wesco on Saturday. Dabo's really touted how good this freshman class is. Who's your front runner for freshman of the year thus far, despite the limited sample size?
Ooh, good question. How about Nolan Hooser, the kicker, who is 20 for 20 on his kick so far, hasn't missed one. Maybe I'm jinxing him. But you go back to last year at this time, and that was a big problem for Clemson. Couldn't trust anybody to kick an extra point. Couldn't trust anybody to kick a field goal. And now you don't really worry when he trots out there. Has he been down the middle on everything? No. Sammy Brown's going to get a lot better. I thought he was absolutely fantastic Saturday. There were a couple times. There was one time that NC State gashed him where I think he was kind of supposed to stay in the B gap, and he had the running back, and instead he kind of gets sucked into a fake, and he runs into the middle of the line, gets caught up in the wash, and they get a big gain out of it. D. Creighton kind of did the same thing when they gave up the touchdown down there. But other than a few of those glitches, man, Sammy Brown is really good. Dabo told us Sunday night, still a big gap between Woodaz and Carter and Sammy Brown, but Sammy's coming. And then TJ Moore is coming too, and you're going to see more out of him as the season goes on.
David, any injury update on Phil Maffa after he went down on Saturday?
Yeah, it seemed like it was just a stinger, and he went in the tent and they taped it up and kind of put that brace on there. And apparently he's fine. No word yet on Peter Woods, whether they're going to get him back this week. I think that, they were really hoping to hold him a couple of weeks, including that open date, and see what happens with him. I'm hearing, we'll talk to Dabo obviously tomorrow. Tyler Brown, they held him this past weekend. He's close to a return. So this is a Tiger team that's really in pretty good shape, considering you've played 3 games.
We're joined right now live by David Hood of TigerNet.com. Cade had himself another big day. 16 of 24, 3 touchdowns, more than 300 yards through the air. It's the second straight game that he's been pulled early, and obviously we all understand why you do that. But in your mind and in your experience, is there a risk of Cade getting used to basically only playing half a football game and then being pulled and not really having to deal with the physical and mental strain of playing 4 quarters against quality opponents?
I don't think so. They stress these guys during practice all week, and this is a kid that took an absolute beating. A lot of people probably don't know the extent of the leg injury that he suffered last year, and probably a lot of players after he suffered that calf injury would have checked out and gone and had surgery and ended the season, but he kept playing, and he still plays with a sleeve on that leg. And for him, he comes out and he gets the snaps, and he's still throwing, mid-20s in the passes, and they're running up touchdowns, and he's still getting, 7 or 8, 9 drives. I think it was important for him to kind of come out and get that second half drive the other day to get that 9th or 10th drive or whatever it was. So, in a normal game, you're getting close to a full game. You're getting, a lot of times you say maybe you only get 12 drives a game. Well, he's still getting a lot of drives just because they're scoring so fast and scoring so many points. And I just don't think there's any danger of that.
David, earlier on the show, we did what we just all of a sudden coined as Paul up, Paul down, P-A-W, not P-A-U-L, regardless of how bad my Southern accent is. What would you say your one Paul up and one Paul down is? One thing you saw that you thought was the best thing you saw Saturday, as well as the one thing that you saw that Clemson needs to work on?
Yeah, the one up is that offensive line. I told somebody this morning that's in the ACC, we were discussing some other things, and I said, man, if I'm Clemson, I'm backing the Brinks truck up to Matt Luke's door. Don't let him get away. What he has done with that offensive line is nothing short of amazing. Those guys were dominant at the point of attack. You look at that Cade touchdown run where you've got both Tristan Lee and Marcus Tate pulling on that play and blocking it just perfectly. Troy Stellato, the wide receiver, also blocking pretty good down the field. But, man, that group is still trending upward. They're healthy. Ryan Linthicum is getting better. That's, to me, yes, Cade's been great. Receivers have been great. But for this offense to do what it's going to do, it's got to go through that offensive line. I think they've been fantastic. And then, the down part of it, I still think this defense is getting gashed too much out on the perimeter, not setting the edge. I think that there are some issues maybe with tackling the linebackers a little bit. I think they've got to get those guys better in space. The defensive ends kind of trying to replace Peter Woods. Denhoff was good. AJ Hoffler, he did good, but still too many guys kind of getting out in space and missed tackles. And NC State, let's just face it, man, they had Waters at running back and Casey Concepcion, but against a team with more playmakers, that can cost you.
David, let's go back to that conversation there. Something you just mentioned about Matt Luke, and it could apply to Garrett Riley. I mean, it could even apply to Cade Klubnik, through his junior season here. Dabo, one of Dabo's hallmarks has always been keeping his staff happy and keeping players on roster for as long as he possibly can, not having a ton of guys choosing to leave early. First question, if Cade ends up getting a good draft grade after the season, let's say he keeps having games like he's having through the first 4, really the last 2, and he gets that good draft grade, what do you think of Cade's mentality when it comes to making that decision of going off to the NFL, coming back for another year, and then applying that same question to Matt Luke and to Garrett Riley, both guys who are going to be in-demand guys coming out of this season? Do you believe both of them do you think Dabo's going to be able to keep both of them around for a long time as well?
Yeah, so starting with Cade, I don't know. There's some pretty good quarterbacks going to be in this class because of his size. I don't know that you're ever going to see him bounce up there into that, first, second round grade, maybe even third, not sure. Maybe he could get into a third round with a really good year. And then it would just kind of be a decision for him. And, for him, it's not like, he needs to go out and do this for his family. They don't need the money. He doesn't need the money. And so for him, it would just kind of be balancing, am I ready for the NFL, or would another year in college get a little bit bigger or get a little bit better? Would that help me more? I think it really just depends on the grade and kind of weighing that. And would he go? Sure, he would go if it was the right opportunity. And then with Matt Luke, I truly think Matt Luke is going to be in big demand. He really is. But he lives close by. He's in this area. And I just think it would have to be some overwhelming opportunity. I'm not sure that he is really, chomping at the bit to go and get a head coaching job. Again, he's kind of mentioned that before. It's a little bit different being a head coach. Lives in the area. Kids are around. He's happy. Clemson pays him. I think he would be happy. He'd be easier to keep. Now, Garrett Riley, don't know. He's moved. He's gone from East Carolina and, then to SMU and now to Clemson. Would he be more likely to move? Maybe. His wife, his kids are involved in the local athletic leagues, and they're kind of starting to put down roots. But if you're Garrett Riley and you have a good year, and somebody says, "Hey, come out and do this," and go to a program maybe a little bit more high profile than Clemson, who knows? I don't know that he's ready to be a head coach yet, and I think he would tell you that still a little bit too young.
Another one in Memorial Stadium. David, it seems like Clemson just has a plethora of home games this season. Stanford coming to town, making the trip coast to coast. What does David Hood think about this Stanford matchup? Another game with a 20-point-plus spread for the Tigers.
Yeah, Stanford's going to be confident coming in. They've got Jaden Daniels, the quarterback. He made some big plays up at Syracuse the other night. Emmett Kinney hits the field goal to win it for Stanford. Good for him. It was right down the middle. They put the ball in the middle of the field. The defense stood up. They played well. He's got that wide receiver 13, is it Elik Ayamanor, who's had a great career at Stanford. He's going to play on Sundays, I think. They're going to come in confident. Now, do they have playmakers across the field? No. Are they as athletic as Clemson? No. Do they have the same type of speed as Clemson? No, they don't. But they seem to be really well coached. They're confident. They put their guys in a position to play. And, you can kind of see the body language with them Friday night, that even when things got a little bit wonky with them and they get behind and, Kyle McCord hits that pass for Syracuse and they go ahead. It's a group that didn't panic. And it's a little bit of an older team in spots. They've really gone young on that offensive line. And I think that's where, Syracuse, they're fine. They don't compare on the defensive line to Clemson. That's where the tail of the tape is going to be. I just don't know that for 4 quarters, a Stanford offensive line can hold up to what Clemson's going to bring.
David, I saw that you tweeted about the Mack Brown situation in North Carolina late Saturday evening. Now, this has been such a fluid situation. He's since walked back his statements. The media saying that Mack Brown quit and then he's decided to come back. I mean, Mack Brown's an emotional guy. He's also kind of a funny guy. He's also not afraid to be a little bit manipulative with what he does. What do you make of this whole Mack Brown? Is that a valid way to motivate a team and galvanize a team by essentially threatening to walk out on them?
No, I think that is an absolute mess up there. After he had that locker room speech where he supposedly said, "I'm done," they didn't let the players. They didn't make the players available to the media. They are not making the players available to the media this week at all ahead of this weekend's game at Virginia, I think. It is a little bit of a disaster up there. It really is. And, part of it, if you're Bubba Cunningham, you've got Mack and he's emotional. They just give up 70. Do you know who the defensive coordinator is up there?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Yeah, so it's Jeff Collins. Remember him, Waffle House, former Georgia Tech head coach. And so that's your defensive coordinator. He's got his first year on the job. Some of their other guys. Is their offensive coordinator ready to take it over? Who would you get in an interim deal? I kind of believe Bubba talked him out of it, and kind of saying, "Hey, let's think about this overnight," because there's really nobody on his staff that you go, "This is the guy." This would be a head coach in waiting, and so it becomes a little bit more difficult. At this point, gosh, you could do something absolutely crazy. You could call up our boy that coached at LSU, Ed Orgeron, and say, "Hey, come run this ship for the rest of the year." Don't know that that's an option. I don't know that Chip Lindsey, the offensive coordinator, is an option. So maybe they're just kind of taking a look at some things and hoping it settles down.
David, great stuff as always. Have a great time Saturday. It's homecoming. Any big names we expect to see Saturday in the Valley?
Yeah, still working on that. Still trying to recover from this weekend. Just got off the phone with a basketball recruit, Chase Thompson, who is down to Clemson in Iowa. And the big news out of that is that Chase spent time with Dabo Sweeney and Cade Klubnik and got beat by Dabo Sweeney in a game of pig.
Ooh, now are you sure you want to recruit him at this point?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's apparently a pretty good shooter, but the Dabo, look, have you ever seen the Seinfeld episode where, they are in the locker room and they convince, they tell George he's a chucker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever seen it? He's a chucker? Dabo's a chucker, man. I'm telling you, I've seen him played out there with him, played in his house against him. Dabo's a chucker. He can shoot the rock, man.
I like it. David, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's David Hood, TigerNet.com. We'll switch gears and go South Carolina. Robbie Ashford, he was the QB1 show. How you Gamecock fans feeling? Get your thoughts on Robbie Ashford, and is that the last time we'll see Robbie Ashford this season? All that and more next. Overreaction Monday coming your way in 12 minutes from now. Get your overreactions in. Go ahead and start thinking about what you overreacted to this weekend. You're a fan. We know how fans overreact, and that's what we're going to do in the very next segment. Hit us up, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. That's coming up in about 12 minutes from now. But Diesel, the Gamecocks looked the part as they were supposed to do. It was a very simple weekend for Clemson and South Carolina both, right? Clemson, NC State, you're supposed to go beat up on a lesser team. South Carolina, very same situation. You're supposed to go dominate Akron, and that's exactly what they did. Without Lenora Sellers, without Rocket Sanders, the Gamecocks, Diesel, I was there. It was a very boring game. However, the Gamecocks did exactly what they were supposed to do. They beat up on little old Akron.
Yeah, Akron has been terrible this year. They've given up 50 points or near it 3 times. Every FBS team they've played, or every power team, every power conference team they've played, they've given up close to 50 points. It was Ohio State, Rutgers. Now that's the head scratcher for me. I'm not surprised that South Carolina put up 50 points. I'm a little surprised that they did it with Robbie Ashford. If it was Lenora Sellers, I'd be like, oh, that makes total sense. The offense has been humming under Lenora Sellers. And we said last week that we didn't believe that South Carolina needed Lenora Sellers to comfortably win this game against Akron. Put up 50 points. Robbie Ashford, 15 of 21. They didn't ask him to do a lot, right? They only asked him to throw the ball 21 times in that ball game. They put a lot of it on Oscar Attaway. He was really good rushing the football. They didn't. I mean, I know Robbie carried the ball 16 times in that game, but that's just part of his style, part of the way that he plays. But it didn't feel like they needed to put all that rushing on him.
No, it was a big night for Robbie. And look, he did not play well, as we know, against LSU. I think that, as we talked about last week on Friday, the best possible thing that could have happened to South Carolina happened. They won the game, they stayed healthy, and Robbie Ashford looked the part and gained confidence. He was 15 of 21, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, a very high QBR, 94.2. As you mentioned, 16 times he ran the ball, 133 yards, also a touchdown on the ground. He's averaging 8.3, or he averaged 8.3 yards per rush on Saturday. So it was a good performance by him. Again, it was against Akron, but I do think it's important for his confidence. Now the question becomes, for Robbie Ashford, Diesel, do we even see him again this season if Lenora stays healthy? And I believe we'd all agree.
Probably not, but that also assuages a lot of our fears about him as a backup. He is now proven it. Again, not against a great defense, 52, 49, and 50 in their 3 losses for Akron. So I think he showed that he is competent, that he is efficient, that he can complete a lot of passes, he can distribute the ball well, and that he is dangerous with his legs. So he is a very, very competent backup option for South Carolina. If Lenore's continues to have little injuries, it takes him out here and there, a series here, a series there, a quarter, something like that. If you're a Gamecock fan, you got to feel good about where you are quarterback wise.
You know, the only thing I would say is it's weird. Like, we talked about Nick Harbor not being involved last week and thus far this season. We all know that he was focusing on track during the spring, and maybe that had more of an impact than we discussed, than we talked about. But seeing him even against Akron, only 2 targets, 2 catches, like it's very clear that Nick Harbor is not a part of this offense. And that's one of the most shocking things to me. Maybe we bought too much into video game number hype, right, when he came out with those high numbers. But it's been very, very clear that Nick Harbor is not a part of the way that this offense is going to operate in 2024.
Well, that's one thing that concerns me. He's a guy that I don't know where his loyalties lie percentage-wise to track and to football. It feels like he might be that kind of guy who is in danger of transferring out of this program. If he wants more touches, if he wants to be a bigger part of this offense, and you got Gage, you got Mazio, you got all these guys ahead of him that are getting more touches and more yards and touchdowns and accolades, he may say to himself, do I really want to be here for this? Do I want to go somewhere else and chase playing time and chase touches? It feels like that type of situation that might come to that.
Texter says, I would say I'm not so sure they stayed healthy. Very worried about Rocket's ankle. Texter says Harbor specializes in running straight, mostly in track or slightly curved around the corner. I hear he's struggling with footwork and route running. Brendan Burnett says, if you had to pick right now, who wins, Clemson or Carolina? That's a fantastic question. We'll hold that off, Brandon, to make you keep listening.
But we have a real conversation where that's concerned right now.
Yeah.
It's not an easy answer.
No, it's not. And I'll say this, Brandon, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. How about this? 6 o'clock when we do our upset pick standings, we'll do it then. 6 p.m., I'll give you my answer. Diesel will give you his.
When we come back, it is time for our Overreaction Mondays. Go ahead and get in on the phone lines, 844-326-3663. What is your biggest take from the weekend that maybe is a little overboard? That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. You know how it goes on Sunday and Monday mornings. You freak out. You lose your mind. You fire your coach. You give him an extension. You're ready to throw your quarterback out with the bathwater.
Or your coach quits.
Overreaction Monday here on the Fan Upstate. Who's got a bug up their butt? 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Call in on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Looking for your Monday overreactions. You can also text 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. So we go first to JD, who's on the phone lines. JD, welcome into the show. What do you got?
Thank you, first of all, for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Course. And this is one thing. As we were talking about it here, I got to thinking about the NFL, and man, they have become literally better writers than like your drama cop TV shows, like Law and Order and Blue Blood. So my overreaction is that the NFL has went too far in creating drama. Here we are with Travis Kelce struggling through 3 games. The Kansas City Chiefs, though, are still 3-0. And they didn't get, or they got the pass interference call last week, didn't get the pass interference call last night against them. And it's just like, I think the NFL is trying to feed into this Taylor Swift and getting the Kansas City Chiefs to a 3-peat.
JD, do you not like Blue Bloods?
I do. I love
it, man.
it. But that's what I'm saying. Dude, Blue Bloods. I used to watch Law and Order, SVU, not so much anymore. NCIS, LA, man. Yeah, I love them all the cop shows. It's always a good, heartwarming story at the end of it, one way or another, especially with Blue Bloods and the family dinner. Anyways, that's neither here or there. My overreaction, though, is that the NFL sucks. And also these people that are so hyped up on Robbie Ashford playing against Akron, having the highest QBR in the SEC this week. Like, it was Akron, y'all. Chill out, all right? Thanks for taking my call. Y'all be blessed, not stressed.
Thank you, JD. He's not wrong about that. I walk into our boss's office earlier today, and he's like, have you seen this article? Have you seen this article where this pundit was telling Travis Kelce to retire because he looks stressed out? He looks sad. Taylor didn't come to his game this time, so he's not playing football very good right now.
Now, I've seen the article, but let's not act like the NFL is putting the article out, right?
No, they're not putting the article out.
So it's not the NFL.
And you know how you know how these go. Like, one person makes a statement, and the entirety of the internet runs with it, embellishes it, and then it's like a massive telephone game.
He's
right?
had a few bad games.
He's had a couple of bad games. They caught one shot of him looking sadsies on the sideline with his stupid new mustache, and all of a sudden, pundits are telling him to retire.
Yep, not good.
Nowhere in the article, and this came from Daily Mail UK, nowhere in the article did it specifically name or quote which play-by-play guy told Travis to retire. Now, I am tired of all the Kelce narratives. I'm tired of Travis. I'm tired of his brother.
Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing about him. I'm tired of turning on the news and they're talking about it. I'm tired of turning on Sports Center and they're talking about it. I'm tired of going on any music news website and they're talking about it. For God's sake, give us some time away from the Kelces. You're burning us all out.
We're stuck
on the Kelces.
Yeah.
You're hitting us with it constantly. Listen to their new podcast. Did you hear what Travis said? How come his girlfriend wasn't there? Do you think they're going to have babies? Shut up.
You need to delete social media. Just delete it all.
You have to.
Delete it all.
That's
Burn
enough.
JT and Greer says, here is an overreaction. Clemson is back and better than ever. They just beat up on 2 really bad teams. That would be a good overreaction, JT. Not a bad one at all. Look, they're back to winning. They're back to putting up a lot of points. They're back to a really good defensive performance, right? That's the way it works. So they're back to doing something. I wouldn't say they're back, but they're back to winning. Tolo Steve here. It's time for the Cleveland Browns to bench Deshaun Watson. He is a shell of what he used to be. He holds on to the ball too long, makes costly errors, no confidence. Unfortunately, we're stuck. Oh, I know where his fandom lies. We're stuck with him for the next 2 years at $60 million a year because of the stupid contract the owners gave him. But Diesel, I don't think that's an overreaction.
No.
I think he's just bad.
No, Deshaun is bad. Deshaun, as soon as he got the guaranteed money, it's like he shut it down. He's like, I'm not going to go be the Deshaun of old. I guarantee you, he's still hearing about this stuff constantly from his agents, from his lawyers. Like, sometimes your confidence and that spark that made you what you were, just gets extinguished. And a lot of this, most of this is of his own doing. Turns out, allegedly, that Deshaun Watson is a massive scumbag, allegedly. And when the world knows you're a scumbag, allegedly, and it's clear to everyone that your demeanor has changed, that's not allegedly, we can all see it, then you're just not the player that you were. You can't play loose. You can't play free. You got people yelling awful things at you from the sidelines, and it just changes who you are.
Trying to find where Deshaun Watson even ranks. Oh, here he is. So he's right now in the very bottom half of the NFL passing leaders, 551 yards on the season for old Deshaun. Not a good year. So who was that, Steve? Was that Tolo Steve? Steve, look, I know you're a Browns fan, but I don't think you're far off. I wouldn't consider that much of an overreaction. Diesel, I'll give you one of mine. I want to hear one of yours. I'll say one of my overreactions, keeping it in the NFL, the Cowboys will and should fire their coach at the end of the season, Mike McCarthy, who is the all-time winningest coach in Cowboys history. A lot of that has to do with the short amount of years that he's been there, right? That's what winning percentages are made of. However, I've seen enough. I posted on Twitter earlier today a picture of Bill Belichick in the Cowboys attire. I'm ready. Sign me up. I've seen enough of Mike McCarthy. I've seen enough of this team, and I've 1 and 2 start. I'm done, checked out, ready for Bill Belichick.
The Carolina Panthers, I do like it. I do like it a lot. The Carolina Panthers will win 8 games down the stretch with Andy Dalton. Overreaction. 8-7 down the stretch for the Carolina Panthers. And it's going to be glorious.
That's a big overreaction.
Yeah.
DB says, here's my overreaction. Nebraska is who we thought they were. Not good enough to be in the top 25 yet.
How about this one?
Ooh.
Robbie Ashford made a mistake transferring to South Carolina because Robbie Ashford would be starting at most ACC schools.
Ooh. I think he could start at a few. I think he can start at I still don't think he's any good. I really don't. I don't think he's any good. But
he'd be a hell of an FCS quarterback.
Hey, he might get started at Florida State right now.
Kelly Bryant went down to, was it Kelly that went down to FCS? Went down to like Jacksonville State or something like that. Which Clemson quarterback was that went down to the FCS level and was just running roughshod over everyone?
Can't remember off the top of my head.
How about this one? Give Billy Napier the rest of the season.
Oh, God. Just
they beat Mississippi State. Graham Mertz was good. Graham Mertz was real good. He only threw 2 incompletions the whole game. 2 touchdowns, 2 incompletions. Ooh. Give Billy Napier the rest of the season.
Give him the rest of the season. We've got some good ones coming in. How about this one on the YouTube stream, Diesel? Ayatollah of Rock and Roller says, Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick. Yeah, that sounds like a great pairing. It's okay. Fair enough. How
about this one? Vanderbilt on the short list of a team that could be in the playoff picture.
Oh, God. No.
they took Missouri to overtime.
No, surely not. That one's a little too much for me. Bo on the text line, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Bo says, overreaction. Cole, I told you last week the Panthers will go undefeated the rest of the season. Bo, what are you drinking? It's a Monday at 5:10. Are you kidding me?
Here's an overreaction. Fire the truck driver that wrecked Tennessee's equipment trailer on the way back to Knoxville.
Oh, man. That's
because who wrecks a company vehicle?
Yeah, who does that? Texter says, or this is Jacob. Jacob says Willie Corn tore it up at NGU. Is that who you're talking about? Way back?
No, I'm not talking about Willie.
No, Willie. Let's see here.
This is more recent than that.
I think I've missed a few on the text line here. Overreaction Monday. Texter says last week the Chiefs win on a PI called on their opponent. It was fair. This week they commit obvious PI and it wasn't called with the game on the line. You're right. I did see that. Chiefs games have become WWE. I did see that pass interference no call, and I believe you're right. Sam from the Berg, by the way, says all of KC's games are scripted more than a WWE match. Sam coming in strong with the WWE NFL relation there. Let's see. I'll confess my overreaction to Tennessee's ultra-conservative offense in the second half of the Oklahoma game. Texter goes on to say, and I'll say the NFL is some bad play by overpaid players. Ooh.
Well, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of people who think that football players deserve every penny that they're getting.
That's true. Texter says Caleb isn't who they hyped him up to be.
Oh, you don't say. Who was saying that all off season that Caleb Williams was going to be a bust?
Oh, that would be Diesel.
That's me. I told you.
I still believe him.
I told you Caleb Williams was going to suck.
Let's see.
They primed the pump for Caleb. They got him they got him enough to be serviceable at this point. I wouldn't say that they gave him enough to be great at this point, but they gave him enough to be serviceable. They got him a good wide receiving core. Don't know much about the Bears offensive line, but they gave him enough to be decent, and he still sucks.
Texter says Caleb is okay. They just read that. Ashford definitely needed to leave Auburn. Check Bo Wallace, Bassing, High Freeze. Texter meant Hugh Freeze, I believe. Lefty Tiger. Overreaction is Clemens, third string D, couldn't walk on at Wofford. What? The 21 fourth quarter points? Is that it?
That's garbage touchdowns. Garbage time TDs. Come on now.
I don't know.
Come on.
I still think
most
21.
of those guys none of those guys are getting in if it's a close football game.
I still think 21's too many to allow in the fourth quarter.
Well,
14. Yeah. Okay, I gave you Cowboys and McCarthy. How about this overreaction? Diesel, Coach Prime proved this all wrong. He proved this wrong.
Oh, God.
On Saturday, knocking off Baylor. Coach Prime proved to us that Colorado, look, as much as we hate on them, as much as we talk about them, they went out, they beat Baylor on Saturday in a fantastic football game.
I saw a lot of tweets claiming that game was over well before it was over.
Yeah.
That's like a cold takes exposed right there.
Yeah. If you missed that game, by the way, it was a fantastic ending. I mean, a fantastic ending with Colorado and Baylor.
Baylor is currently sitting at 14th in Kelly Ford's power projections, the projected Big 12 standings. So, let's not talk about, Colorado knocked off Baylor. Baylor sucks this year.
They do suck. However, to be fair, we would never be talking about Colorado right now.
To be fair, last year, this is a game that they lose. This is a game that Colorado loses. So, congratulations to them.
38-31 win for Colorado. Another overreaction from me, my last one. Actually, I had two more. I did agree with you. Let's get rid of Bryce Young, trade him off, send him off wherever, ship him wherever he'll go, whatever container he'll fit in. Go ahead and get rid of Bryce Young. Diesel, my last overreaction. Clemson won't lose again until the college football playoff.
Oof. That's
you like it? Don't like it?
That's bold.
It's bold. It's overreaction.
You might not be wrong, though. You might not be wrong. And that's kind of the way we all expected this season to go over the course. We expected them to struggle in week 1 against Georgia. And then when you play a weak conference schedule, a week out of conference schedule outside of that, you kind of walk your way through it. Now, Louisville might have something to say about that. South Carolina might have something to say about that.
Miami
ACC
maybe.
Yeah.
ACC
you get an ACC title game.
I like it. John Dog says Kansas City breaks the Miami Dolphins undefeated season record and Super Bowl this year. That's a great overreaction, by the way, John Dog. Really is, because that's never happened. I don't think it will ever happen. But if somebody were going to do it, it would be Patrick Mahomes, right? Like that would.
Does he need more accolades?
No, but if he's going to get one more, can you imagine? Just go ahead and do what's not been done, to John Dog's point, since the Miami Dolphins, and go undefeated, win it all with as many games. I mean, they didn't play near as many games back then, Diesel. I can't remember how many games they played, 14 maybe, but now they're playing like 306 games a season, right? So I think it would be a lot more impressive. I really do.
The league is now set up for Patrick Mahomes to go break records. Are you shocked they're playing 17 games? He's blowing away records of guys that only played 9.
I'll tell you what's crazy though, and we mentioned this back in the very first segment when talking about the Panthers. One thing that I can't wrap my mind around is why league-wide passing is down the way it is. I mean, we have never seen a drop-off from last year to this year in terms of league-wide passing. You said it in the very first segment. Andy Dalton's the first quarterback to throw for over 300 yards this year. That just doesn't seem right.
It's going to get passed. Somebody else is going to do it. It's just the first one who had done it to this point.
It's just odd, though, that are we getting back to this old school mentality of football? I mean, maybe it's because the younger quarterbacks are now taking over and they're not as pass happy. I think the younger quarterbacks being in the league has something to do with it. And now everybody wants to run a lot. You have the Derrick Henrys of the world, right? Lamar Jackson, they're a run team. Jim Harbaugh, that's what he does, is run the ball. So I think that is a fascinating question of why that's down. DB says Dolphins won 17 to get to that record. Now you have to win 20. Heck, it's more than 20, isn't it, DB? Or is it 21? You might be right. 17, still impressive, by the way. Let's not act like that's not impressive what the Dolphins did, because still mighty impressive. So those are my overreactions. Those are Diesel's. Billy Napier, I think, wins. Give Billy the rest of the season.
Mississippi State.
Just go ahead and crown him the champion.
New Vanderbilt of the SEC.
That's bad, isn't it? That is bad. Imagine taking Vandy's spot. Oh, God. All right, we're going to talk a little South Carolina Gamecocks football. The Gamecocks, look, they're on a bye this week. Big win over Akron. However, Diesel, the very next time they play, it'll be a big one. Ole Miss looming in the distance. We'll talk to Jordan Kay of the State Newspaper about the South Carolina Gamecocks next. Talking a little South Carolina Gamecock football helps if your mic's on when you try to talk, Diesel, just FYI. Talking Gamecock football with Jordan Kay of the State newspaper. Jordan covers South Carolina Gamecock football. We've talked about the performance already today of Robbie Ashford. But Jordan, as you look at the performance of South Carolina, obviously without Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders, do you feel as if Saturday's a game where you can actually take things away, or do you have to look at the game for what it is, a game against Akron?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to take much away because it's Akron, who, aside from Wofford, is probably going to be the worst team you'll face all year. And then no Lenora Sellers, no Rocket Sanders for most of the game. And so you're looking at the offense going, like, how many of the guys who really contributed on Saturday are going to be contributors the rest of the season? Perhaps Mazio Bennett, who had a nice game again, kind of solidified himself as the top wide receiver target. The defense, I mean, Akron was really good at just doing quick game stuff, which didn't lead to really any points, but avoided sacks from Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, and so that part was good. Other than that, though, man, it's tough to like go and make sweeping remarks about the season or the team or the offense based off the performance on Saturday.
Jordan Kay of the State newspaper covers South Carolina, joins us here on the Fan Upstate Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Jordan, what game do you circle now on the schedule, game or games, that you kind of looked at the beginning of the season? You said, well, that's probably a loss. You kind of look at it as an unwinnable game, that you now look at it and say, well, these Gamecocks have a real chance the way they're playing and maybe the way that other team is not starting so hot and so fast.
Yeah, I think the two right now. I'm not ready to go there yet with the Ole Miss and Alabama, but Oklahoma just does not look like they have things figured out right now. I mean, granted, losing to Tennessee is not the biggest deal in the world. Tennessee's really good, but I mean, they've got a quarterback controversy going on in Norman right now. And so you look at that game in a couple weeks as initially, I don't know if that's winnable for South Carolina. And all of a sudden it's, hey, that might be a game you can go and steal. Like, who knows how good Oklahoma really is. They're going to be coming off the Red River rivalry. So their emotions, who knows what they're going to look like then. I think that's a game that South Carolina can easily go and take. And then the other one is Missouri at the end of the season in Williams-Brice Stadium. I mean, Missouri's like number 11 in the country right now. I, for one, do not think they're going to be number 11 by the time they come to Williams-Brice. And that was an initial one where you're thinking, Eli Drinkwitz just has, South Carolina's number. I don't know if South Carolina's going to pull it out. And heck, Vanderbilt almost got him. So that might be another winnable game that initially didn't have them pull them out.
Jordan, through the first few weeks of the 2024 season, when Shane Beamer and this staff get a chance to reflect and pause with a bye week, obviously they'll still practice, and how they handle Lenora Sellers this week will be very interesting. However, what do you think that South Carolina fans should grade, or how should they grade Shane Beamer's first four? I mean, a 3-1 start to me seems like a start that most Gamecock fans would have taken in a heartbeat.
No doubt. If you ask any South Carolina fan, hey, you're going into the bye week at 3-1, feeling pretty good about yourself. Like, who is not taking that? But then we all do this. You can't get that LSU game out of your mind. And I think that's like the thing for like any South Carolina fan, even Shane Beamer, who as late as Thursday night said he was watching the TV copy of that game. Like, that's crazy. I've never heard of a head coach admitting that. That game is just tough to flush. And I mean, they did a really good job of getting it out of their system. Having Akron the next week definitely helps, and putting up a 50 burger is good too. But if you're a South Carolina fan, like, just don't think of the way that the LSU game went. Just think, you're 3-1. A bowl game seems like an inevitability at this point. 10 wins is still out there. I mean, if you want to get really crazy, like, the playoff is still on the table. I don't know if we want to go there yet, but I mean, all these things are in front of you. And that did not seem possible for South Carolina before the season. Heck, that hasn't been possible for like 6 years. They haven't been 3-1 in forever. And so you have to be really pleased with where South Carolina is at, especially given the way they've played in all these games. Even the Ole Miss Alabama game coming up, it doesn't seem like South Carolina is going to be the team to get blown out. And so you have to be really, really happy with where they're at.
Jordan Kay joining us here on Wire to Wire. How much do you believe South Carolina has had to show thus far through the season, LSU being the one real rock fight that they were in? And with a bye to prepare for Ole Miss, do you expect a whole lot of wrinkles and scheming and gaming? Or is it, we're going to do exactly what we want to do, and it's just up to you to stop us?
It's probably a little of both. I mean, I don't think South Carolina's held anything back. I mean, there might be some stuff where they're saying, hey, we'll start to, incorporate some wrinkles later on. But, that LSU game, I think they threw a lot out there. The thing is, I mean, we haven't seen Lenora Sellers really in like 6 quarters. And so there's probably a lot that they haven't gotten to with him or stuff that, he necessarily wasn't comfortable with or didn't execute exactly right in the first 2 games that maybe they can show against Ole Miss. And so that might be the thing that they've got. I'm really curious, though, like you're saying, hey, you got a bye week. And, I mean, one of your toughest opponents coming up, how do you use that to prepare? They said they're going to practice, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off the rest. I think coaches will go recruit on Thursday, Friday. So Shane Beamer said they're going to start incorporating the LSU game plan, maybe towards Wednesday. I'm guessing some of the coaches have already got some stuff prepared, and they can maybe send guys off, when they're going to see their family and friends Thursday, Friday, hopefully with some nuggets about Ole Miss or definitely some film to watch. And so that'll be a nice head start. I mean, anything helps when you're going up against a top 10 team in the country. But yeah, it'll be interesting because, I think this is probably a game where they're going to have to hit on some stuff that, they haven't in the past, hit on some of those deep balls, maybe a fake punt or two, gets the offense going a little bit. So we'll see what they've got in store.
Jordan, I love talking to South Carolina fans to kind of gauge, where their mind's at and where their headspace is at. I want to ask you, though, when you look at the rest of the season, which of the two, in your mind, could trip South Carolina up the most, especially in these big games? Do you think it's the play calling of Dow Loggins, which a lot of Gamecock fans have expressed that they don't particularly love, or do you think it's the wide receiver core and just not having a guy step up? Mazio Bennett's been good, but not having that consistency there yet.
Probably the wide receiver core, I think, a little bit more, especially when you start going against some of these SEC defenses coming up. Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, I mean, had a pretty good defensive game against Tennessee. That's kind of where my problem lies. And I think, too, it all really comes back to the protection. Dow Loggins can only call so much stuff, but, we saw against Akron even, like, South Carolina's still allowing sacks. And this is a team that's given up more sacks than almost any team in the country. And so it all starts with that. I mean, the play calling is not going to be helped when your quarterback keeps getting sacked. Your wide receivers, I don't care if they run the greatest route in the world. The quarterback doesn't have but a second to get the ball out. I mean, they're not going to get a pass caught. So I think it all comes down to the protection. But yeah, someone's got to step up at the wide receiver core. Maybe that guy's Mazio Bennett. Maybe it's Jared Brown, who missed this last week with an injury. But right now, I mean, Mazio Bennett's leading South Carolina in basically every receiving statistic, and he has 11 catches for 149 yards. That's a bit concerning.
Jordan, what are you hearing as to why Nick Harbor is not as involved as a lot of Gamecock fans hoped he would be?
Like, Nick Harbor, I just think he's still figuring out how to be a great wide receiver, a good wide receiver. I think he's still like learning to play the position, as crazy as that sounds. This is a guy who is a really like good track guy and is really fast, but he still needs to learn how to play the wide receiver position. He still needs to learn the intricacies of football. And sometimes that's just catching the ball. There's times, I mean, the LSU game, he had like a slip screen and he batted it up in the air to himself and was tackled like basically at the line of scrimmage when it could have been, 5, 6, 7, 8 yard gain. Sometimes you just watch him catch the ball. It just doesn't look supernatural. The route running, I don't know if it's there yet. I mean, the thing is with Nick Harbor, and like I think Shane Beamer's like almost pissed about talking about it because everyone just wants to bring it up every week, is like, if he was there, like talent-wise, all that, like they would put him in the game. Like all they need right now is wide receivers. And so the fact that he's not getting targets and not seeing the field probably tells you a lot about what he's been doing in practice and their trust level in him. Just because he can run a 10, 1, whatever, 100 does not mean that translates to being a great receiver. So it's just something that I think fans just see the 5-star and the 99 rating on the video game and think, just let him run wild and you throw a deep ball to him. It's like, well, if a cornerback just checks him off the line, like that doesn't really work anymore. And they've tried to get him involved on an end around stuff and it just doesn't work all the time. And like, I just think there's something that he's still learning how to be a wide receiver, and that's going to take time. It didn't help that he missed all of spring to go run track. Granted, he qualified for the Olympic trials, so, that's pretty cool, but like he needs time to develop as a wide receiver, and it's probably not going to happen in the middle of the season.
Jordan Kay, the state newspaper, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Jordan covers South Carolina Gamecocks. We all know that in the bye week and going into the Ole Miss game, the one of the most important factors, Jordan, will be the health of Rocket Sanders. Anything you've heard there from him health-wise after Saturday's scare?
Yeah, Shane Beamer said, I mean, he had it looked like an ankle injury, him wearing a boot afterwards, and that's what Shane Beamer said after the game. And I don't, based off Beamer's comments yesterday, if South Carolina had a game this week, he was saying Rocket Sanders would be extremely questionable, which tells me it's probably like a 2-3 week injury. And Beamer seemed pretty optimistic. He was saying that they expect everyone to play against Ole Miss. So that's at least good news. So we're going to kind of have to monitor it next week and see how the injury progresses. If it is like an ankle sprain, that stuff can be pretty fickle. As you kind of see with Lenora Sellers, depends on if it's a high ankle, low ankle, whatever. So we'll see. But, for now, the signs are good.
We got Jordan Kay of the state newspaper joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Jordan, I'm going to throw 2 stats at you, and you can throw in the third one if you think of something else off the top of your mind. Which is more concerning to you? 30% conversion on third down or averaging 75 yards of penalties per game?
Probably the third down, honestly. The penalty stuff is concerning, but I think that's easier to clean up. And some of them are some of them are off the ref's discretion. Some of the delay of games against Akron was really weird. And the LSU game is just going to be such an anomaly. You would hope that might contribute to why South Carolina is probably going to have bad penalty numbers for the whole season, just the averages. The third down one, though, is just crazy. Like, they are horrible on third downs. And it ended up working out decent against Akron because they got enough on third down that they were comfortable enough going forward on fourth down. So they didn't have to punt because of that. But the third down stuff just tells me they're not executing on first and second down. And so they just get themselves into these like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 15 sometimes. And like, you're just not going to sustain drives and execute when you're consistently doing that. That's kind of what happened in the second half against LSU. It's just they kept getting in these 3rd and longs and couldn't go. Against Akron, it was, not as great of a defense, and you could get a couple yards on third down and go for it on fourth or whatever. But yeah, that one's a little concerning to me, and I don't know exactly how you fix it. Probably comes to just making sure you're getting a couple yards on first and second down, whether that just be making sure Rocket Sanders runs the ball more on those downs or doing a quick screen play just to get yards and not try and, necessarily throw the ball into low percentage throws as much.
Jordan, great stuff as always, man. We appreciate you hopping on with us, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too, man. That's Jordan Kay of the State Newspaper. Really good stuff there. And I can guarantee you one thing, Diesel. I'm not in the guarantee business, but I can guarantee you they won't have 75 yards of penalties this Saturday. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's fair. I will say, hey, one huge stat that really has stood out to me is the fact that they've only thrown 2 interceptions over the course of the season.
Yeah.
And last year, we know that Spencer Rattler, he had that reputation as a gunslinger. He'd throw a lot of picks. Well, at least through the air, they've been taking really good care of the football, and I believe that puts them at +4 in the turnover margin in interceptions. They've picked off 6. They've thrown 2. So, I mean, it hasn't been the cleanest look through 4 games of the season, but by God, you got to be thrilled with the way this season is going. It sets you up very nicely to win the games that you're supposed to win. You feel more confident about those now. And you're also thinking, man, we might be able to sneak away with 1 or 2 of these against Missouri, against Texas A&M, games that on paper, beginning of the season seemed like a sure loss. Those are now turning around. And now you're staring at an easy 6-win season, possibly 7, possibly even 8. And then, man, Gamecock fans are going to be riding high if that happens. When we come back, Cole, we'll take a look around the sports world. A lot on the docket, a lot happening today. We'll get to our Daily Wires next. We talk a lot of Clemson. We talk a lot of South Carolina. We talk a little bit of Carolina Panthers. They finally gave us something to talk about this week, right? We talk mostly about those teams because that's what you care about the most. But there's a lot more happening out there in the sports world. So we pack it all into one succinct, tight package. We call it our Daily Wires. This is the buzz in the sports world. The Braves took two out of three from the Marlins this weekend. They're now 7 games back. The Mets are 5 games back, so still in the hunt for the wild card. How about that?
Gotta beat the Mets. Probably 2 or 3 this week. They're off today, so if they're 2 back from the Mets,
if you sweep, you're feeling real good about yourself.
Yeah, and then you have 3 against Kansas City to end the season. This is it. These are all the games. So the chances are still there.
Back.
No, you've got to if they even have anything to unleash.
Yeah.
They've got to unleash it out. What do they say? Empty the clip. That's what they have to do now if they're going to make a wild card run. I don't see it happening. I still think the Mets get in.
The Braves, by the way, are off today, and they have 6 games left in the season. Travis Kelce only had 4 catches for 30 yards last night against the Falcons. There were some questions surrounding his level of distraction, and some unnamed analyst, as reported by the Daily Mail UK, said that some analysts said that he should just go ahead and retire.
I think he should. 1 bad game, 2 bad games, whatever it is, right? Just absolutely. I mean, that's pitiful.
Regardless of the fact that his team is still winning, we all are poking fun at how they're winning, but they're still winning.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. Not winning, Furman. Furman lost to William and Mary on Saturday, 34-24, final score. The Paladins are now 1-3 on the season, coming off a really good, really strong 2023 season. When you lose as much as they did on the offensive side of the football, man, it's really tough to recover. And William and Mary is a really good football team.
They are.
They're not a traditional power, but this year they are very good.
Furman's had some tough competition, Yeah. I mean, they're one win of the season, but they played some good teams.
Yeah, they set themselves up after an elite season. If they had this schedule last season, I would expect them to be 3-1 at this point. At worst, 2-2. But they're sitting at 1-3 so far. Wofford did not play this past weekend. They were on a bye. North Greenville got the win over Mississippi College 29-7. I still don't like this. The Trailblazers are 1-2 on the season. Trailblazers.
I don't like it either.
Like, have you ever gone up there, Tigerville, and walked a trail before? Well, you might have because you were a student. But I've never once traveled up there to hike some trails and blaze some trails.
You're blazing trails, baby.
No, I don't like it. Whoever's listening from North Greenville, change the name back. It is not good. Alabama begins this week as a rare home underdog to Georgia. They'll play Georgia on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. This marks the first time since 2007 that Alabama is a home underdog.
Think about that. Just think about 2007.
I was graduating college in 2007.
I wasn't even thinking about
probably
college.
Watching cartoons.
I mean, that's unbelievable,
Eating
man.
Cereal and watching cartoons.
That just shows, like, if you don't appreciate what Nick Saban did, that right there is magnificent.
Well, you didn't bet against Nick Saban. He didn't always win.
Yeah.
He won most of the time. You just knew. Don't bet against Nick Saban.
I bet against him once. I had a terrible loss. When they played Georgia and lost twice 2 years ago, won the national championship, I bet.
Twice against them?
Yeah.
Oh, not good. Duke was the only FBS team from the state of North Carolina to win this past weekend. The North Carolina Tar Heels, the NC State Wolfpack, the Charlotte 49ers, East Carolina Pirates, and App State Mountaineers all got blasted in their games. Average margin of loss, 25 points.
Ooh.
Now, it happened. I don't think it was last year, but I think it was 2022. There was a week that I believe PC was the only Division I team in the state of South Carolina that won that weekend. Clemson, Coastal, Wofford, Furman, South Carolina, all of them lost on a weekend. So freaky stuff like that happens.
And PC didn't even know they won. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Caitlin Clark was unanimously voted the AP Rookie of the Year for WNBA, and Any reason to have pushback on that?
Yeah, I don't think she deserved.
No Angel Reese, not even a single vote.
No, I don't
anyone
think
else?
she deserved it. I don't think she should be in the WNBA. I think she's a terrible player. You know,
Probably a bad person too.
I mean, you can't make the Olympics. What do you need? I mean, what? Just cancel her. Cancel her.
The Chicago White Sox have tied the major league record with their 120th loss on Sunday. They are now tied with the 1962 Mets for the most number of losses in a season. They will play the 63 and 93 Angels on Tuesday. A little late realignment news here for you. Air Force has committed to staying in the Mountain West. They were considered a candidate for the American Athletic Conference to join Army and Navy. And Gonzaga has announced they are leaving the West Coast Conference to join the new Pac-12. And here's the biggie, Cole. Without football, they will still get a full share of conference revenue distribution.
How about that?
That's a big financial bump for Gonzaga. Way to go.
Speaking of big, Diesel had a big weekend. I did not. What are we talking about? The Upset Picks Challenge. Man,
Whoop, whoop.
I'm getting to the point where I'm not happy.
Get
I don't
on the
like
bus.
losing. I don't like losing. We'll get to the Upset Picks standings next. Diesel, do you remember a few weeks ago when we had this company outing at the bowling alley at Spare Time in Greenville, and you and Rob and everybody else in Lonzo forced me, gun to my head, to play, to get involved and bowl with you guys?
Oh, darn. Right? We made you have a good time, Cole.
And I told you then.
I've never heard somebody bitch about having a good time as much as
I'm
you.
going to do it right now. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, the reason I'm telling you that is, I've always been a type of person that if I'm not good at a certain game, I just don't play it.
Because it stops your love life.
Well, it doesn't. But listen, I get frustrated because I'm not good at a certain game. And rather than being frustrated, I would rather just not play the game. I don't play board games. I don't like chess. I don't like all of the other games. Bowling's one of them. Golf is another one. If I can't do it, if I can't do well at it, I'm just not going to play it. And I hate to tell you, but I'm getting mad. I'm getting upset because I can't get good at the Upset Picks Challenge. I can't string together any wins. I only got one game right the entire season, and it was South freaking Carolina, and I cannot win back-to-back. I'm getting upset. I don't like to lose.
Georgia's getting upset.
No, I'm telling you, I'm very competitive. I don't like losing. And this is I've lost way too many times now. Losing is not fun to me. And I'm just going to take my ball and I'm going to go home. But you did have a good weekend.
I did. Yeah.
I almost did, but East Carolina crapped the bed.
Well, that's your fault for betting on East Carolina. I mean, they had a 16-0 lead against App State and blew it. Then they had a 17-0 lead against Liberty on the road and blew it. I mean, why would you choose that team?
I just thought, I told you, I thought they would win. I don't know.
I mean, you gamble a little bit. You have a little inside knowledge, right?
I was so upset about it.
Did any of the games that you looked at hit?
I don't think so. I think I only looked at like 3 or 4, and I don't believe they hit. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to create some time away. I am going to, this week in my busy schedule.
Just don't pick this week.
Well, I'm going to pick. I don't want to be a quitter.
I think you should just not pick.
But what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to have to change up what I'm doing, right? I'm going to have to, as the coaches say, hit the drawing board, refocus, regroup. I don't like to lose, so I'm going to probably one night this week sit down when I get home about 8 o'clock and Diesel, I'm going to put 3 or 4 games together.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna use a strategy that I haven't used yet. I just don't like being in this position where I'm not winning. So I'm gonna switch it up. And if that doesn't work, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But I'm gonna try a new strategy because Dan B has yet to give me his.
Well, picking upsets is hard, right? It is hard. And we had a handful of games hit this weekend. We had a lot of Tolos who picked James Madison over North Carolina. I, along with I think 2 or 3 others, maybe took Navy over Memphis. We had a few Tolos take the Syracuse over Stanford game, which I looked at that one as well. And I was so mad because that game was Friday night and it hit. And I was like, come on, watch what's going to happen here. A game that I looked at but didn't take will hit, but a game that I really felt good about and took won't. Luckily it did. And I would have been fine going with either one of them. I don't remember what the spread was on that Stanford Syracuse game. I want to say it was like 6.5, I think, but I did better by going with the one that I did. So now I have 9.5 points and I am ahead of you, Cole Bryson, but you still have points on the board. So like, chin up.
It's just not
buck up, Buttercup. You'll be fine.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I don't have points. I don't have as many points as you have.
You have 8
and you have
9.5.
See, I like that.
So I'm only ahead of you by 1.5. You hit this weekend. You're doing just
You know what's
fine.
going to happen? And I hate to say this. I'm going to start chasing like gamblers do. I'm going to start chasing and I'm going to pick some stupid game this week where somebody's a 20-point favorite and I'm just trying to make a big splash and it's not going to work.
That's how you get back down to 0.
I know.
Don't do that.
I'm so impatient. I'm the worst. I'm impatient. I hate losing, and I'm overly competitive.
Oh, Scott Tedler. Scott Tedler is a quitter just like you.
What do you say?
Well, he's not a quitter because he's a non-starter. He says, I'm with you, Cole. Main reason I'm not doing the challenge. I'm just terrible at picking games. We all know us Boston guys aren't known for being graceful losers.
I'm not either. I'm not. Like I'm telling you, man, that's the majority of the reason that I didn't do a lot of things growing up was because I I am a terrible loser. I am, man. I hate to lose. I don't care if it's upset picks challenge or you and I go out in the parking lot and race. I hate to lose.
So we just got a follow on Twitter and appreciate Cadillac357, who says, at least I'm in the top 25. Cadillac, you're in the top 25, but who are you?
He's got an alias.
He's got an alias on Twitter, and I'm not sure.
I think he just made the.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Cadillac is. There's CJ from Greer. Are you CJ from Greer? You're not Cheesehead Corey, because I met Cheesehead Corey yesterday.
I like that name, Cadillac.
He came out and joined me at Dave & Buster's, which, by the way, if you're an NFL fan, I'm at Dave & Buster's now every week, 1 to 2.
Oh.
Instead of 2 hours ahead of every Panthers game, I'm at Dave & Buster's every Sunday, 1 to 2, regardless of what time the Panthers play.
Now, wait a minute. 1 to 2.
1 to 2.
What if they play on Thursday?
Doesn't matter. I'm still there 1 to 2 on Sundays.
What if they play on a Sunday?
I'm still there at 1 and 2 on Sundays.
Just make
so
sure
if it's a 1 o'clock game, I'm there for the first hour of the Panthers game.
I like it.
Switching things up, man.
I like it.
Changing things up. So
I like it.
So Cadillac's in the top 25.
Just hadn't told us his name yet.
Right. Is Cadillac Sparty Party 12?
No, that doesn't sound. Sounds like two.
He's not Stanford. Names. Well, Stanford Steve is from Game Day.
CJ. He responded back. He's on it, man. He said CJ from Greer.
There you go. Okay.
I like it.
Figured.
I like it.
Thank you, Chad.
And by the way, that's
a great Twitter handle, by the way.
Is it a better Twitter handle though, or a better beard? If that's who CJ from Greer is in the profile picture,
solid.
I mean, come on,
it's real solid.
He's rocking,
and he's rocking the Mastodon T-shirt too.
He's got the look, man. Like you don't want to, what with him,
It's probably a teddy bear.
You think so?
Probably.
I wouldn't want to find out.
I thought you were going to say another F word.
They say F around and find out. CJ from Greer, appreciate you being in the Upset Picks Challenge. Also, also appreciate you following us on Twitter. If you haven't done so already, do so right now. Just go ahead and do it right now since CJ did. At The Fan Upstate, I am at D. Cole Bryson. Diesel's at Diesel on Radio. Scott, what do you say?
Scott said, I'm sorry. I'm bad at picking games, but I'll challenge. See, Scott, you're trying to start a fight here, but I'll challenge most of these people to a spelling bee or a hole has. See, look at you. You said I'm going to challenge you to a spelling bee and you misspelled a word. And who has the most teeth left contest?
Who?
Yeah. Is there an owl in here? Come on, Scott.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Scott, you calling all our Tolos, our valued Tolos, a bunch of no teeth having, can't spell.
I would not be good at spelling.
So's and so's. I mean, most people can't spell there, and there.
THEIR.
Yeah.
I got that one. I've got that one. By the way, 7 minutes from now, let's answer Brandon Burnett's question 6 minutes from now at 6:15. Brendan Burnett texted in on the stream earlier, or texted in on the text line, Diesel, and asked if South Carolina and Clemson played today, who we thought would win.
Good question.
6 minutes from now, Brandon, we will answer that text. Is Amazon guy still leading? He's still in the lead, right?
Let me get back to it. I just clicked off of it. No, Amazon guy is now in second place.
You're kidding me.
He has been passed by Josh Pate.
Well, that doesn't count.
That does count. Josh Pate.
That's not a Tolo, is he?
Well, yeah. He listens every day.
Oh.
Where do you think he gets the content for his show?
Oh, right here.
Josh is incredible. And he is the host of probably if not one of the most popular college football sports shows in America. So happy for his success.
Yeah.
But he also has a lot of analytics behind him.
If Josh Pate wins, though, are we going to give Josh Pate the win?
Yeah, I mean, there's no prizes.
I don't know. I will feel like I'm abandoning our Tolos if we give it to a celebrity.
Well, then we need Amazon guy to step up. Noel is doing great. Noel has 24.5. So
I'm just a man of the Tolos. What can I say?
I'll let you go through the top 30. How about that, Cole? I'll let you go through the top 30 on these leaderboard standings because people have been asking. Like that is one of the hottest topics on Monday. People don't really want to talk about what happened in the Clemson game. They don't really want to talk about what happened in the South Carolina game. They just want to know where are they now in the upset picks challenge brought to you by Ingles. Yeah, start at 1.
Josh Pate. Even though he's not a Tolo, he's at 1. I'm a man of the Tolos. Amazon guy at 33.5. Jake Crane, not a Tolo, 25.5. Noel Tolo, 24.5. Buckeye Brian, 23.5. Kevin Buggs. I've never met Kevin. I haven't heard from Kevin. We need to get Kevin on a little bit more interactive on the interactive side. Pay to play a little bit more. We hear from JT and Greer a lot. Diesel, he's tied at 7 with Twisted Whisker, who we hear from a lot, 21.5. JC is at 9th at 21. Coach AJ and T-Ray are tied at 10 with 18.5 points. Need to hear from both of them more as well. I'm calling Tolos out right now. Justin L at 12 with 18.5 points, or 18 points rather. Mike Main. We hear from Mike Main a lot. I like Mike Main. 17.5 for Mike Main. John Dog, hear from John Dog. So Mike Main and John Dog are both tied at 13. Ty Duncan and Lee Corso tied at 16.5. Jess, the wife of DB. How about that, Diesel? She's up there, 16 points. Cheesehead Corey, 15. He's at 18. Brandon and Spartanburg and Sparty Party 12 are tied at 14.5. Ethody tied at 14.5 with them as well at 19. CJ from Greer, Leprechaun of Lyman, Clemson Oculus, Joe D, Stanford Steve, all at 14. Fred Savage at 13 points. He's sitting 27th. Diesel and Shiji and Roger Carper both at 28 with 12.5 points. And then Mark L.O. Ducks coming in at numero.
You got to watch out for Mark L.O. Ducks.
Why so?
He has crushed it in this competition before. I think he won it one year. I think he won it in 2022. I think. I know last year he was high up on the leaderboard as well. A lot of other Tolos have points on the board. We just read through the top 30. We kind of do it like the top 25 with others receiving votes in this graphic, which, by the way, you can find at the Fan Upstate on Twitter. Go there and give us a follow, please. Mason Brew, Notre Dame Nate, Greenville Gamecock, Brian Andrews, Kirk Herbstreit, Shane Barrett, Wesley Roberts, Nick Saban, Mark Ryan is playing the game, JB, Isaac, Shane Connick, Keith and TR, myself, Hurst, Frank Wagner, Reese Davis, John Corley, Scotty Mack, Tolo Steve, Brian Pettit, Cole Bryson, Falcon Jeremy, Josh P1 Panther Boy, Gold Rush, Diddy, Chase, Vance, Brandon from Moore, Ben from Simpsonville, Rev Red, Reed Atkins, JD Wyatt, MD75, Tiger Power Rachel, Will G, Palmetto Buckeyes, Bomo, Dab Daddy, Ethan Reed, Tolo, Phil, Trey from Kentucky, Tron, Pac Fan Shuff, Shane in Sugar Tit, Mike M, Fan Nasty, Sherb, at J-Rock, and Melissa Level on the board. Man. Melissa has just one little point.
Melissa,
she's
fixing to lose that one little point.
This is your week. I think Melissa's going to hit big. Melissa's strategy has been go big with some of these picks, and it's not paying off for her. It's not paying off for her, so I mean, she's in danger of falling back to 0 points.
Yeah, bad strategy.
At J-Rock always waits to get in his picks until very, very late. So I thought J-Rock was going to fail to make a pick last week and fall all the way back off the leaderboard entirely. Yeah. But we've got some incredible stats that Dan B helps keep track of. The biggest jump this week goes to Cheesehead Corey, who picked Fresno to upset somebody. He got 15 points from that. He had 0 points before. So shout out, congratulations to Cheesehead Corey from jumping from 0 to 15 points, which puts him inside the top 30. So he's on the main part of the leaderboard. Congratulations to you. I'm on the leaderboard now ahead of you, Cole. You just keep slipping back.
Pitiful.
14 new Tolos scored to get on the board this week. We have 82 total Tolos who have points, and we have 154 unique players in the game. That's massive.
It's massive.
I think the most we've ever had was somewhere like 80. Dan, you can help me out there. I think Dan's watching on the stream. I think the most number we ever had was like 80, 90, something like that. So we very well could double the number of Tolos who are playing this game.
On the text line, Kevin Bugg says, I'm always listening, but never talk. Go Bills. There we go. Listen, I said, Kevin, we need to hear from you more. He takes it in right there. Bam. Chase G. Listen, man, you're 2 days too early to the party. Chase G sends in his upset pick. However, Chase G, you've got to wait until Wednesday at 4 p.m. That is when the Upset Picks Challenge opens. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during show hours, beginning Wednesday at 4 o'clock. About at 7.
4 o'clock. Wesley Roberts on the stream.
I saw that.
Says, I bet Diddy will slide to the bottom in no time. Well, I see what you did there, Wesley. This is not buying up cases of baby oil. Diddy.
Different one.
With 2 D's. It's Diddy, as in Mike Venditti.
Scott says, yeah, I was just trying to type that out at a red light while driving. I really do love the Tolos and the show. I just can't lose the Northeast in me. Tolo, Scott, appreciate you being a Tolo. And thank you for waiting till you get to a red light until you do that. By the way, quick update before we answer a very important question. I have gotten a lot of notifications over the weekend.
I was going to follow up with that question.
Bad. It's bad.
When does it start to affect
I've got 10 more days of learning period.
Oh, you're learning. Okay.
I'm in trouble. I have literally got to.
If anyone doesn't know what Cole's talking about, he signed up for one of those car insurance scams. That
I don't think I signed up. She just told me, here's the app. You got to download it.
That looks at your phone telemetry data, I guess, determines when you're speeding, determines how often you pick up your phone while you're driving, all these things. And Cole keeps getting all these notifications, all these demerits, basically, for bad driving.
I've gotten 19.
Has it are they going down at this point, or are you still getting them?
No, I forget. I have not programmed my brain yet.
No.
Like when I get in the car tonight, it will, if you pick up your phone, bam, event.
Does it ding you right then and there?
No, it does after the fact when you get home.
Oh, it should ding you right then and there. Like, bing, you're doing something bad. You're like, oh, crap, put my phone down.
It's so bad. Again, it's a great insurance policy. I'm saving a ton of money. However,
for now.
For now.
You're saving money for now. And then when they realize you're Dale Earnhardt Jr. out there and you can't put your phone down,
it's bad.
You're in doo-doo, my friend.
All right, we've got to hear from David Hood, who we had on the show earlier today. But before we do that, before we hear from David, let's answer a question from Brandon Burnett. He texted in during the 4 o'clock hour today. And Brandon Burnett Diesel asked us the question, if South Carolina and Clemson played today, who wins? How close would it be? I've thought about it for 2 hours now. If they were to play today, I think Clemson wins by 10 to 14 points.
Okay.
Which is a large margin.
Score prediction?
I'd say anywhere. I'd say Clemson scores 28-31. And then I would say that South Carolina scores 17-21, somewhere around in there. At the end of the day, if they played today, to answer your question, Brandon, I wouldn't have enough faith in South Carolina's wide receivers against Clemson's defense. I don't think South Carolina would score much. Maybe a touchdown or two.
I think if you played today, you'd have a better chance than you will at the end of the season. If it was today, I would say Clemson 35, South Carolina 24.
Close game.
Game.
9 points, 11 points.
Yeah. South Carolina would be able to score on Clemson now. Give it, 6 more weeks plus. You got Sammy Brown, who's had more time to gel and get better in this defense. And then I think that number starts to go down. I don't see Clemson's scoring going down. So I could, by the end of the season, right now I'm calling it 35-24. End of the season, I would call it probably 38-17.
It's just tough, man. Like South Carolina's receiving core. That's, we just talked to Jordan Kay an hour ago, and we talked about it. Their receiving core outside of Mazio Bennett hasn't been impressive. Their offense statistically is like second worst in the conference. So I don't think they'd score a ton on Clemson right now. But the beauty of it is, Diesel, between now and Thanksgiving, a lot could change, right? And that's when Saturday after Thanksgiving. So a lot could change between now and then. Speaking of Clemson, we go to David Hood, TigerNet.com. We spoke with David back in hour number 2 of the program, and we talk all things Clemson next.
Rinse and refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
TVs and Carolina Panthers football. Every game, every week at Dave & Buster's.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
The Burns Rebels get their first win of the 2024 season on Friday night as the Rebels came out victorious 52-0 over Wade Hampton. The Burns Rebels accounted for over 500 yards of total offense in the win. The Rebels will now turn the page as they travel to Roebuck, South Carolina on Friday night to take on the Dorman Cavaliers in a much-anticipated region matchup. The Fan Upstate, home of Burns Rebels football, brought to you by Ingalls and Founders Federal Credit Union.
Text us at 71307. Keyword fan. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan.
Clemson coming off back-to-back blowout wins at home at Death Valley. They took it to App State, and they showed us that it was no fluke against NC State, also out of the ACC. We go now to David Hood of TigerNet.com to talk about it. David, first of all, welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking the time with us. But it feels like this is kind of like a all's right with the world for Clemson fans, right? Beating up on weaker teams. Given the way the defense is playing right now, which is pretty good, do you believe that game goes markedly different if Grayson McCall is in?
No, not really. I think C.J. Bailey I think he was fantastic. I do, considering the rush that he was under and the way that he performed. Grayson McCall was not good in his, time in a Wolfpack uniform, and I'm sure he's still going to play. But, you really, if you're a Wolfpack fan, you had to love what you saw from C.J. Bailey. He ran hard. He threw the ball well at times, and in fact, I'm sitting there in the press box trying to wonder what's going on with their offensive coordinator when at one point he is having absolutely no success running the football, but they have run it into the middle of Clemson's defensive line more than they're letting Bailey throw it. And I thought the kid did really well.
David Hood, TigerNet.com. David, a couple of weeks ago after the Georgia loss, I said on the air that what I predicted to happen was – the heat that was currently on Dabo from the national perspective as well as local perspective about not using the portal. I predicted, App State, NC State, these few games coming up, Clemson would go out, trot out, and put up 1 million points, look really well. And I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I believe Clemson fans, not all of them, but some of them are guilty of falling into the cycle that I predicted of allowing yourself to be, trapped by the ideology of what's going on right now. You're kind of a victim of the circumstance that's happening right now. And Clemson fans, some of them, in my opinion, they get really high after these wins, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that you should apologize for a win. However, do you think that these are substance games, or this Clemson team really is getting better?
No, this Clemson team really is getting better. It doesn't matter who you're playing. That kind of goes back to the nameless, faceless opponent. You still have to execute. And so you go out there and you go, okay, so NC State, not very good, but do you play down to that opponent or do you play up to your level? And if you're playing up to your level, that's what you have to take away from it. And this Clemson offense is lethal. I think actually the offense is playing better than the defense, and the defense has some issues that need to get fixed and need to get fixed right away before, they play better competition. Stanford's coming in this week. Stanford went on the road and beat Syracuse. They're going to be really confident. Then you got to go on the road for a primetime game at Florida State, at Wake, come back for Virginia, and then you have that 5-game schedule in November that, will really tell the tale for this Clemson team. So you just go out and you get better every week, and you look at how you play, not who you play, how you play. And I think that's the most important thing. And remember, we talked about after that Georgia game, don't get too low. Still got, 11 regular season games to go. Don't get too high. You just kind of take it week by week.
David Hood of TigerNet joining us here on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg. Speaking of that defense, Sammy Brown led the team in tackles and tackles for loss on Saturday. Obviously didn't play against Georgia, but he's really emerged in the last 2 games against App State and NC State. Freshman TJ Moore had a massive reception for 40 yards. Tough game for Bryant Wesco on Saturday. Dabo's really touted how good this freshman class is. Who's your front runner for freshman of the year thus far, despite the limited sample size?
Ooh, good question. How about Nolan Hooser, the kicker, who is 20 for 20 on his kick so far, hasn't missed one. Maybe I'm jinxing him. But, you go back to last year at this time, and that was a big problem for Clemson. Couldn't trust anybody to kick an extra point, couldn't trust anybody to kick a field goal. And now you don't really worry when he trots out there. Has he been down the middle on everything? No. Sammy Brown's going to get a lot better. I thought he was absolutely fantastic Saturday. There were a couple times, there was one time that NC State gashed him where I think he was kind of supposed to stay in the B gap, and he had the running back, and instead he kind of gets sucked into a fake, and he runs into the middle of the line, gets caught up in the wash, and they get a big gain out of it. D. Creighton kind of did the same thing when they gave up the touchdown down there. But other than a few of those glitches, man, Sammy Brown is really good. Dabo told us Sunday night, still a big gap between Woodaz and Carter and Sammy Brown, but Sammy's coming. And then TJ Moore is coming too, and you're going to see more out of him as the season goes on.
David, any injury update on Phil Maffa after he went down on Saturday?
Yeah, it seemed like it was just a stinger, and he went in the tent and they taped it up and kind of put that brace on there. And apparently he's fine. No word yet on Peter Woods, whether they're going to get him back this week. I think that, they were really hoping to hold him a couple of weeks, including that open date, and see what happens with him. I'm hearing, we'll talk to Dabo obviously tomorrow. Tyler Brown, they held him this past weekend. He's close to a return. So this is a Tiger team that's really in pretty good shape, considering you've played 3 games.
We're joined right now live by David Hood of TigerNet.com. Cade had himself another big day. 16 of 24, 3 touchdowns, more than 300 yards through the air. It's the second straight game that he's been pulled early, and obviously we all understand why you do that. But in your mind and in your experience, is there a risk of Cade getting used to basically only playing half a football game and then being pulled and not really having to deal with the physical and mental strain of playing 4 quarters against quality opponents?
I don't think so. They stress these guys here in practice all week, and this is a kid that took an absolute beating. A lot of people probably don't know the extent of the leg injury that he suffered last year, and probably a lot of players after he suffered that calf injury would have checked out and gone and had surgery and ended the season, but he kept playing, and he still plays with a sleeve on that leg. And for him, he comes out and he gets the snaps, and he's still throwing, mid-20s in the passes, and they're running up touchdowns, and he's still getting, 7 or 8, 9 drives. I think it was important for him to kind of come out and get that second half drive the other day to get that 9th or 10th drive or whatever it was. So, in a normal game, you're getting close to a full game. You're getting, a lot of times you say maybe you only get 12 drives a game. Well, he's still getting a lot of drives just because they're scoring so fast and scoring so many points. And I just don't think there's any danger of that.
David, earlier on the show, we did what we just all of a sudden coined as Paul up, Paul down, P-A-W, not P-A-U-L, regardless of how bad my Southern accent is. What would you say your one Paul up and one Paul down is? One thing you saw that you thought was the best thing you saw Saturday, as well as the one thing that you saw that Clemson needs to work on?
Yeah, the one up is that offensive line. I told somebody this morning that's in the ACC, we were discussing some other things, and I said, man, if I'm Clemson, I'm backing the Brinks truck up to Matt Luke's door. Don't let him get away. What he has done with that offensive line is nothing short of amazing. Those guys were dominant at the point of attack. You look at that Cade touchdown run where you've got both Tristan Lee and Marcus Tate pulling on that play and blocking it just perfectly. Troy Stellato, the wide receiver, also blocking pretty good down the field. But, man, that group is still trending upward. They're healthy. Ryan Linthicum is getting better. That's, to me, yes, Cade's been great. Receivers have been great. But for this offense to do what it's going to do, it's got to go through that offensive line. I think they've been fantastic. And then, the down part of it, I still think this defense is getting gashed too much out on the perimeter, not setting the edge. I think that there are some issues maybe with tackling the linebackers a little bit. I think they've got to get those guys better in space. The defensive ends kind of trying to replace Peter Woods. Denhoff was good. AJ Hoffler, he did good, but still too many guys kind of getting out in space and missed tackles. And NC State, let's just face it, man, they had Waters at running back and Casey Concepcion, but against a team with more playmakers, that can cost you.
David, let's go back to that conversation there. Something you just mentioned about Matt Luke, and it could apply to Garrett Riley. I mean, it could even apply to Cade Klubnik, through his junior season here. Dabo, one of Dabo's hallmarks has always been keeping his staff happy and keeping players on roster for as long as he possibly can, not having a ton of guys choosing to leave early. First question, if Cade ends up getting a good draft grade after the season, let's say he keeps having games like he's having through the first four, really the last two, and he gets that good draft grade, what do you think of Cade's mentality when it comes to making that decision of going off to the NFL, coming back for another year, and then applying that same question to Matt Luke and to Garrett Riley, both guys who are going to be in-demand guys coming out of this season? Do you believe both of them are do you think Dabo's going to be able to keep both of them around for a long time as well?
Yeah, so starting with Cade, I don't know. There's some pretty good quarterbacks going to be in this class because of his size. I don't know that you're ever going to see him bounce up there into that, first, second round grade, maybe even third, not sure. Maybe he could get into a third round with a really good year. And then it would just kind of be a decision for him. And, for him, it's not like, he needs to go out and do this for his family. They don't need the money. He doesn't need the money. And so for him, it would just kind of be balancing, am I ready for the NFL, or would another year in college get a little bit bigger or get a little bit better? Would that help me more? I think it really just depends on the grade and kind of weighing that. And would he go? Sure, he would go if it was the right opportunity. And then with Matt Luke, I truly think Matt Luke is going to be in big demand. He really is. But he lives close by. He's in this area. And I just think it would have to be some overwhelming opportunity. I'm not sure that he is really, chomping at the bit to go and get a head coaching job. Again, he's kind of mentioned that before. It's a little bit different being a head coach. Lives in the area. Kids are around. He's happy. Clemson pays him. I think he would be happy. He'd be easier to keep. Now, Garrett Riley, don't know. He's moved. He's gone from East Carolina and, then to SMU and now to Clemson. Would he be more likely to move? Maybe. His wife, his kids are involved in the local athletic leagues and, they're kind of starting to put down roots. But, if you're Garrett Riley and you have a good year and somebody says, hey, come out and do this and, go to a program maybe a little bit more high profile than Clemson, who knows? I don't know that he's ready to be a head coach yet. And I think he would tell you that. Still a little bit too young.
Another one in Memorial Stadium. David, it seems like Clemson just has a plethora of home games this season. Stanford coming to town, making the trip coast to coast. What does David Hood think about this Stanford matchup? Another game with a 20-point-plus spread for the Tigers.
Yeah, Stanford's going to be confident coming in. They've got Jaden Daniels, the quarterback. He made some big plays up at Syracuse the other night. Emmett Kinney hits the field goal to win it for Stanford. Good for him. It was right down the middle. They put the ball in the middle of the field. The defense stood up. They played well. He's got that wide receiver 13, is it Elik Ayamanor, who's had a great career at Stanford. He's going to play on Sundays, I think. They're going to come in confident. Now, do they have playmakers across the field? No. Are they as athletic as Clemson? No. Do they have the same type of speed as Clemson? No, they don't. But they seem to be really well coached. They're confident. They put their guys in a position to play. And, you could kind of see the body language with them Friday night, that even when things got a little bit wonky with them and they get behind and, Kyle McCord hits that pass for Syracuse, and they go ahead. It's a group that didn't panic, and it's a little bit of an older team in spots. They've really gone young on that offensive line, and I think that's where, Syracuse, they're fine. They don't compare on the defensive line to Clemson. That's where the tail of the tape is going to be. I just don't know that for 4 quarters a Stanford offensive line can hold up to what Clemson's going to bring.
David, I saw that you tweeted about the Mack Brown situation in North Carolina late Saturday evening. Now, this has been such a fluid situation. He's since walked back his statements. The media saying that Mack Brown quit and then he's decided to come back. I mean, Mack Brown's an emotional guy. He's also kind of a funny guy. He's also not afraid to be a little bit manipulative with what he does. What do you make of this whole Mack Brown? Is that a valid way to motivate a team and galvanize a team by essentially threatening to walk out on them?
No, I think that is an absolute mess up there. After he had that locker room speech where he supposedly said, "I'm done," they didn't let the players, they didn't make the players available to the media. They are not making the players available to the media this week at all ahead of this weekend's game at Virginia, I think. It is a little bit of a disaster up there. It really is. And, part of it, if you're Bubba Cunningham, you've got Mack and he's emotional. They just give up 70. Do you know who the defensive coordinator is up there?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Yeah. So it's Jeff Collins. Remember him? Waffle House, former Georgia Tech head coach.
Yeah.
And so that's your defensive coordinator. He's got his, first year, on the job. Some of their other guys, is their offensive coordinator ready to take it over? Who would you get in an interim deal? I kind of believe Bubba talked him out of it, and kind of saying, hey, let's think about this overnight, because there's really nobody on his staff that you go, this is the guy. This would be a head coach in waiting, and so it becomes a little bit more difficult, at this point. Gosh, you could do something absolutely crazy. You could call up our boy that coached at LSU, Ed Orgeron, and say, hey, come run this ship for the rest of the year. Don't know that that's an option. I don't know that Chip Lindsey, the offensive coordinator, is an option. So maybe they're just kind of taking a look at some things and hoping it settles down.
David, great stuff as always. Have a great time Saturday. It's homecoming. Any big names we expect to see Saturday in the Valley?
Yeah, still working on that. Still trying to recover from this weekend. Just got off the phone with a basketball recruit, Chase Thompson, who is down to Clemson in Iowa. And the big news out of that is that Chase spent time with Dabo Sweeney and Cade Klubnik and got beat by Dabo Sweeney in a game of pig.
Oh, now are you sure you want to recruit him at this point?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's apparently a pretty good shooter, but the Dabo, look, have you ever seen the Seinfeld episode where, they are in the locker room and they convince, they tell George he's a chucker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever seen he's a chucker? Dabo's a chucker, man. I'm telling you, I've seen him played out there with him, played in his house against him. Dabo's a chucker. He can shoot the rock now.
I like it. David, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's David Hood, TigerNet.com. We'll switch gears and go South Carolina.
prices, love the savings. Are you
a king's ransom.
Yeah.
But if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, and I know you cover the Carolina Panthers, so put yourself in those shoes. How would you feel if Dave Tepper and Dan Morgan and Dave Canales traded for Trevor Lawrence next year?
I think in the right system, he would be okay. I really do. In the right system, I think he'd be fine.
So would you feel 6 out of 10 on Trevor? 10 meaning you feel great?
No, I'd say more
Not
like
even.
4.5.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, really?
Wow.
I mean, is that bad to say?
You telling me, and like Trevor would not sit behind Andy Dalton. He'd be the immediate starter.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but it just kind of feels like Trevor Lawrence is broken. And then also tonight, the second game, Washington, Cincinnati, 8:15, 2 games, Jags, Bills, Commanders, Bengals. That's your Monday night football. We'll see you tomorrow.
Tolos.